Chapter 574. Shu Tianliang's conspiracy. I didn't expect Luoxing Fairy to be here. I was rude just now. But you know my difficulties. Jiu Tian, Jiu Xin, and Hu Wuying are wanted by the Crown Prince. I can't afford to offend them. The black-robed old man looked at Luoxing with fear and said with a fake smile. Although Luoxing's status was higher than his, she was not qualified to interfere in the affairs of Marquis House of Baichuan. Once she interfered, it would no longer be a personal matter, but a matter between two superpowers. This was why the black-robed old man was so fearless. He knew very well that Luoxing's character was steady and steady. It was unlikely that she would force Marquis House of Baichuan for Jiu Tian and the other two ants. Sure enough, Luoxing's face showed a trace of hesitation. She was the first genius of Jade Lady Astral Court. Her words and actions did not represent herself, but the entire Jade Lady Astral Court. Therefore, she had to weigh the pros and cons. Let them go. Suddenly, a clear and sharp voice resounded in this space. Qing Lian, who was originally standing blankly on the spot, had slowly turned around at this moment, and her beautiful eyes were icy cold and emotionless like 10,000-year-old ice as she stared fixedly at the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man was startled. He did not expect Qing Lian to speak to him like this. He naturally knew Qing Lian. She was also a genius of Jade Lady Astral Court. However, she was much weaker than Luoxing. If Luoxing had spoken to him like this, perhaps he would not have cared too much. However, Qing Lian was not qualified to speak to him like this. The black-robed old man snorted and said, "Miss Qing Lian, I have made it very clear that these three people are wanted by the Crown Prince. Do you want to offend Marquis House of Baichuan for these three ants? Since you don't want to let them go, I have my own way to make you let them go." With a cold snort, Luoxing stomped her foot and a tyrannical aura surged out. 10,000 rainbows descended from the sky and circled around Luoxing. The rainbows scattered and the sunlight shone, dazzling and dazzling. The 7 colors shone like dancing butterflies, causing Qing Lian to look like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Peak Ultimate Emperor Realm? The old man's expression changed slightly when he sensed the powerful presence that surged out from within Qing Lian. Although he knew that Qing Lian had obtained an ancient inheritance as well, Qing Lian was only at the mid-king realm of the second wheel after all. In his opinion, even if she had obtained an ancient inheritance, her strength wouldn't increase by much, so he didn't take Qing Lian too seriously. "Miss Qing Lian, you have to think carefully. Do you really want to stop this old man?" At this moment, the black-robed old man's tone had a hint of negotiation. Qing Lian was able to obtain an ancient inheritance. Her future was limitless. It was actually not worth offending such a genius. "Let them go, or I'll beat you until you let them go." Qing Lian's jade-like hand reached out in the air. Countless wind-attributed energy condensed into a spiral-shaped wind sword in her palm. Her beautiful eyes were cold. The black-robed old man's face darkened, and he sneered, "Forgive me for not being able to fulfill your request." Qing Lian didn't say anything else. She tapped her foot lightly and instantly shot towards the black-robed old man with 10,000 streaks of light. The powerful wind sword in her hand slashed down from top to bottom. Instantly, countless hurricanes swept up within 100 miles. 5-wheel Vajra claw. Seeing that Qing Lian had directly attacked, the black-robed old man didn't hold back either. He clawed at the air, and a 5-fingered golden claw that was hundreds of feet long like the rising sun tore through the air behind him and slammed down on Qing Lian. Whirlwind clears the clouds. Qing Lian raised her hand, and the wind sword in her palm spun like a windmill. Instantly, countless hurricanes in the surroundings condensed into tens of thousands of wind swords. They tore through the air and landed on the 5-fingered golden claw in the air. Boom! 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 The attack of the tens of thousands of wind swords was extremely sharp. The densely packed wind swords slammed onto the 5-fingered golden claw and actually shattered the huge golden claw. After the wind swords shattered the golden claw, their momentum didn't decrease at all. They continued to envelop the black-robed old man below with unstoppable force. What? The black-robed old man's face twitched when he saw his 5-wheel Vajra claw broken. His face was filled with shock. Qing Lian was only a peak four-wheel emperor, but she had actually broken through his full-powered attack. Damn it! Barrier of the 8 directions, block for me. The black-robed old man pressed his claws against the ground when he saw the wind swords descending. Immediately, 800-foot-tall stone barriers rose from the ground and surrounded the black-robed old man in layers. They were completely impenetrable. Bang! The tens of thousands of wind swords instantly slammed onto the barrier of the 8 directions. The black-robed old man was shocked to discover that the barrier of the 8 directions was actually shaking violently. Following which, cracks began to appear. Crack! A clear sound rang out as the barrier of the 8 directions collapsed inch by inch. The black-robed old man spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards. He smashed into the empty ground 100 meters away. Disciplinary elder. The sinister-looking man and a dozen others stared in shock at the black-robed old man who had smashed onto the ground. They hurriedly rushed over and helped the old man up. Their gazes were fixed on Qing Lian, who was holding the wind sword in her hand. They were at a loss. Scram. Otherwise, I won't hold back next time. Qing Lian's cold voice slowly rang out as her beautiful eyes stared at the black-robed old man and the others. Let's go. The black-robed old man stood up in a sorry state. He gritted his teeth and had no choice but to leave with the sinister-looking man and the others. He had not expected Qing Lian to be so powerful. Even more so, he had not expected Qing Lian to actually attack directly. With Qing Lian around, the black-robed old man knew that it was impossible to take away Jiu Tian and the others today. Thank you, Qing Lian and Luo Xing, for saving our lives. At this moment, Qiu Chou and the others arrived in front of Qing Lian and Luo Xing with a face full of gratitude. Hurry up and leave the prefecture capital. Zhuoan killed the second prince of the House of Marquis of Baichuan in the Vitality Pagoda. It can be considered as forming a death feud with the House of Marquis of Baichuan. Now that Zhuoan's whereabouts are unknown, I'm afraid Shu Tianliang will attack you. Therefore, the prefecture capital is a dangerous place for you. Luo Xing shook her head and sighed. When Qiu Chou, Jiu Tian and the others heard this, they all revealed a trace of a bitter smile. They did not expect that Zhuoan would cause such a big disaster. However, they did not complain about Zhuoan. They all knew Zhuoan's character. As long as no one provoked him, Zhuoan would not take the initiative to provoke others. The second prince of the House of Marquis of Baichuan, Shu Tianliang, probably provoked Zhuoan first and was killed. The fault was not on Zhuoan. You'd better leave the prefecture capital secretly. Don't be discovered by the people of the House of Marquis of Baichuan. Otherwise, you will be in trouble again, Qing Lian kindly reminded. Thank you for your help. I, Qiu Chou, will remember this kindness. I will definitely repay it in the future. Qiu Chou cupped his hands and said seriously, there's no need for that. Zhuoan also offended the House of Marquis of Baichuan because he saved me, so I am repaying him. Qing Lian shook her head and said. When Qiu Chou and the others heard this, they all glanced at Qing Lian in surprise. However, they did not take it to heart. After cupping his hands, Qiu Chou left with Jiu Tian and the others and the people of Broken Rock City. Junior sister Qing Lian, you don't have to wait. It has already been 3 days. If Zhuoan could come out, he would have already come out. Now that he has not come out, I'm afraid he is really doomed. Luo Xing suddenly came to Qing Lian's side and said softly. Hearing this, Qing Lian's delicate body trembled. She nodded slightly and a touch of determination suddenly appeared in her beautiful eyes. She said, Senior sister Luo Xing, let's go. I'm going to go back to the Jade Lady Star Court and go into seclusion. As she spoke, Qing Lian lifted her jade feet and slowly left the place. Looking at Qing Lian's back, Luo Xing shook her head helplessly. She raised her head slightly and focused her gaze on the Vitality Tower. She muttered to herself, Zhuoan, have you really fallen? In the Baichuan Marquis mansion, in a spacious and magnificent hall, Shu Tianliang slowly leaned on the high seat in the center. He stared at a group of more than 10 people with a gloomy face and said, Those 3 ants from Ratanama City, you didn't catch them? Standing at the head of the table was the black-robed old man who was defeated by Qing Lian. At this moment, The black-robed old man's forehead was covered in sweat. He bowed and said, "Eldest Crown Prince, please don't be angry. The original plan was going well. Unfortunately, Cho Cho and the others from Broken Rock City suddenly interfered." Cho Cho from Broken Rock City? It is said that this person is a peak four-wheel Emperor Realm powerhouse. He is quite a famous powerhouse in Muqin County. However, with the Elder's help, there shouldn't be a problem, right? Xu Tianliang's index finger tapped on the armrest and said indifferently. Cho Cho is naturally not a threat. However, Luo Xing and Qing Lian from Jade Lady Star Court also interfered. I am no match for them, so I had no choice. At this point, the black-robed old man stopped talking. Luo Xing and Qing Lian also interfered. No wonder even if you took action, you would return in defeat, Xu Tianliang said with furrowed brows. Eldest Crown Prince, are we just going to let them go like this? The black-robed old man said nervously. Hee. Of course, we can't let them go so easily. Zhuoan killed my second brother and caused me to lose the ancient inheritance. How can we just let this matter go like this? Since this bastard has already died in the Blood Devil legacy, then let everyone related to him compensate for his death. At this point, Xu Tianliang revealed a cold smile and continued, both Rattan Armor City and Broken Rock City have a deep relationship with Zhuoan. You should prepare well and secretly destroy these two cities. Destroy the cities? Eldest Crown Prince, I'm afraid this matter is very serious. Rattan Armor City is not a big deal, but Broken Rock City is a super city. If we openly destroy Broken Rock City, I'm afraid the prestige of our House of Marquis Baichuan will be greatly affected. The black-robed old man's face changed slightly. Stupid. Did I say we would openly destroy the cities? Rattan Armor City is nothing to be afraid of. If we destroy it, then so be it. Naturally, we don't have to do it ourselves. You should know that Broken Rock City has a lot of enemies. As long as we push them a little, Broken Rock City will inevitably be attacked. I think there are many city lords of super cities who are interested in Broken Rock City. Xu Tianliang's eyes narrowed, and the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a cunning smile. That's a good idea, Eldest Crown Prince. If we use a borrowed knife cleverly, we can indeed indirectly destroy Broken Rock City. The black-robed old man suddenly realized. Yes. Go and contact some of the super cities that have conflicts with Broken Rock City. Once everything is arranged, inform this king. This king will personally capture those who are related to Zhuo Wen and ruthlessly torture them. Hey. Chapter 575. The bad news of the return outside the provincial capital. A group of more than 10 people hurriedly left the city gates. These people were dressed in long black robes with large hoods covering their faces. It was impossible to make out their true appearances. The group of people dressed in strange clothes only stopped when they were nearly 1,000 meters away from the provincial capital. The leader looked around and said in a low voice, "There is no one following us. I'm afraid that the people from the House of Marquis Baichuan didn't follow us out." As soon as this person finished speaking, the group of people around him heaved a sigh of relief. They took off their hoods and revealed their true appearances. It was Cho Cho, Jiu Tian, and the others. It turned out that after receiving Qing Lian and Luo Xing's warning, they had deliberately disguised themselves and hurriedly left the provincial capital. They were afraid that the people from the House of Marquis Baichuan would cause trouble. Senior Cho Cho, City Governor Ouyang, it's all thanks to your Broken Rock City. If it wasn't for you, the three of us wouldn't have been able to escape the provincial capital. Jiu Tian bowed and said respectfully, "Haha. You don't have to be like this. You don't have to worry too much about Zhuoan. I believe that guy won't die." Cho Cho laughed and patted Jiu Tian's shoulder. Jiu Tian and the other two smiled bitterly. They naturally knew that Cho Cho was comforting them. They looked at each other and shook their heads. You have to be careful of the people from the House of Marquis Baichuan. After all, your Vinarma city is a low-level city. With the power of the House of Marquis Baichuan, destroying your Vinarma city is just a matter of waving their hands. I think it's best that you transfer all the important people of Vinarma City to our Broken Rock City, Cho Cho said after thinking for a while. Won't that implicate your Broken Rock City? Gu Tian's eyes brightened, but he immediately said with some hesitation. Don't worry. After all, our Broken Rock City is one of the top super cities in Muqin County. The House of Marquis Baichuan is indeed powerful, but they are not qualified to touch our Broken Rock City. If they really do, the House of Marquis Qin will not sit idly by. Cho Cho shook his head and smiled. Thank you very much, Senior Cho. I will go back now and move the important people of Vinarma City to Broken Rock City. Gu Tian and the other two were overjoyed. Yes. Let's part ways now and meet again at Broken Rock City. Cho Cho nodded his head. Immediately, he led the group from Broken Rock City and soared into the sky. Father, let's go. We need to move the important people of Ratanama City as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be too late if the people of Marquis Baichuan's residence find out. Ji Yuxin hurriedly reminded. Go. Gu Tian nodded. Then, the three of them headed in another direction. Whoosh. Chapter 576. Breaking out of the tower, Gu Tian sighed softly. He understood Zhuo Xiangding's feelings. He also didn't want Zhuowen to fall. After all, he was a genius with more potential than a super genius. His future was limitless. Let's put Zhuowen's matter aside for now. Right now, our first priority is to move our men to Broken Rock City. Otherwise, the House of Marquis Baichuan will not let us off the hook, Gu Tian said seriously. Millimeter. Then we'll do as you say. I'll pack my men today and follow you to Broken Rock City tomorrow. Hu Xiao cupped his fists and said seriously. Gu Tian nodded and looked at Zhuo Xiangding. He said, Zhuo family's head, why don't you follow us to Broken Rock City? Otherwise, the House of Marquis Baichuan will find your Zhuo family sooner or later. Zhuo Xiangding nodded. He had also regained his composure and said calmly, Don't worry, Governor. I'll pack my men and follow you to Broken Rock City. Seeing Zhuo Xiangding nod, Gu Tian sighed and waved his hand. He said, Go back and prepare yourselves. We'll leave first thing in the morning tomorrow. Soon, everyone in the main hall dispersed. Early in the morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone down from the sky, many people in Ratanama City were already busy. The governor's office, the Zhuo family, and the Huban family, the three local powers, had all gathered their men and left Ratanama City. As for the citizens of Ratanama City, Gu Tian arranged for them to stay in the city. He also left behind a group of elite soldiers to maintain order in Ratanama City. Gu Tian only took the most important people with him. As for the citizens of Ratanama City, he believed that the House of Marquis Baichuan wouldn't do anything to these weak people. Therefore, he didn't make any special arrangements. Da. The crisp sound of horse hooves gradually faded away along the winding path. Perhaps, Gu Tian and the rest still did not know that going to Broken Rock City was basically walking right into a trap. They had already walked step by step into the big net that Xu Tianliang had laid out and were only waiting for the final opportunity to catch them all in one fell swoop. Boom! Above the 9 heavens, tens of thousands of bolts of lightning shot out from the black dragon-like clouds, wreaking havoc. Like knotted ropes, they formed a thick lightning prison in the void. Rumble! Tens of thousands of terrifying lightning bolts rained down like a thunderstorm, instantly enveloping a slender figure below. However, the surprising thing was that this figure didn't dodge at all. It clenched its right hand into a fist, and then boundless golden light surged out explosively. It was like a small sun that was slowly being born, and it was dazzling and resplendent. The golden light flashed, and the thunder that filled the sky dissipated. The crisp sound of footsteps rang out, and a young man with messy black hair and fluttering clothes slowly walked out. His exposed skin flashed with a faint golden light, and he looked like a demon or a god, as if he was gilded in gold. Ultimate Emperor Realm. I've finally reached it. The black-haired young man's face was filled with excitement, and he couldn't help but roar at the sky. His voice was like rolling thunder. Not bad. The effects of the lotus bathing in flames are indeed powerful. Kid, you were only at the initial stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm a few months ago, but under the effects of the lotus bathing in flames, you directly advanced to the Ultimate Emperor realm. The ragged Lu Hantian slowly stood up. His hawk-like eyes stared straight at Zhuowen, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Big brother Hantian, how long did it take me to cultivate? Zhuowen calmed his excitement and asked Lu Hantian with a smile on his face. It's been about 2 months. The speed at which you broke through to the Ultimate Emperor realm is quite fast. Originally, it was estimated that you would take 3 months, but you completed it 1 month ahead of time, Lu Hantian praised. 2 months. That means there's less than half a year left until the Battle of the 9 Counties. It seems that we should go out now, Zhuowen said with a smile after thinking for a while. Yes. It is indeed time to go out. But kid, let me remind you of something. The soul of the blood demon is suppressed in the demon-suppressing green coffin on your back. If you haven't completely refined the soul of the blood demon, it's best that you don't open it. Otherwise, the cunning blood demon might take the opportunity to escape. Suddenly, Lu Hantian's gaze focused on the green coffin on Zhuowen's back. His tone became extremely serious and cautious. Zhuowen was stunned for a moment, then nodded seriously. He knew that the other functions of the demon-suppressing green coffin couldn't be used in this way. However, the benefits were extremely obvious. After all, the demon-suppressing green coffin on his back would continuously refine the blood demon's power and transmit it into his body. Unknowingly, Zhuowen was in a state of cultivation all the time. Even if he didn't deliberately meditate, the power of the blood demon in the demon-suppressing green coffin would constantly increase his strength. At this rate, Zhuowen guessed that before the Battle of the 9 Counties, he might be able to borrow the blood demon's power to break through to the Ultimate Emperor realm or even stronger. After all, the blood demon's power was boundless and as vast as the sea. Let's go. Let's leave this place. Lu Hantian warned a few more times. With a wave of his sleeve, an incomparably valiant power wrapped around Zhuowen. With a step, he directly entered the huge blood-colored vortex in the sky. Outside the Origin Chi Tower, the high platform in the center and the 4 large plazas that originally existed had long been demolished. At this moment, there was nothing left in the surroundings. The annual Origin Chi Tower battle was indeed an unparalleled event in the entire Muqin County. However, once the Origin Chi Tower battle ended, the Origin Chi Tower would only be a symbol of the county capital. There wouldn't be too many people around it for sightseeing. When the residents of the county capital passed by the Origin Chi Tower, most of them would occasionally glance at it. Although their eyes were filled with reverence and envy, the Origin Chi Tower that hadn't been opened was only a magnificent building to them. Only 2 months had passed since the end of the Origin Chi Tower battle. However, the residents of the county capital were still talking about the numerous geniuses who had stood out. Although 2 months had passed, the topics of discussion had become even more heated. Among them were naturally the 5 geniuses who had obtained the 5 ancient inheritances, Lv Yatao, Luo Xing, Qing Lian, Qin Batian, and Ling Wushuang. It is said that the competition for the Origin Chi Tower battle this time was far more intense than the previous ones, especially the final 5 ancient inheritances. The results really exceeded everyone's expectations. A patrolling guard in armor was currently narrating the situation outside the Yuan Chi Tower in a lively manner. In front of the guard, there were quite a number of civilians who were listening attentively to the guard's narration. The guard's eloquence was not bad. He spoke vividly and with a cadence of ups and downs, causing the surrounding audience to exclaim from time to time. Evidently, they had all taken the place of the guard's story. Our Muqin counties publicly acknowledged 5 super geniuses. How come 2 of them didn't obtain the ancient inheritances, and instead, it was obtained by 2 unknown geniuses? Could it be that Shu Tianliang of the 100 Rivers Marquis residence and Zhu Kai of the Imperial Sword Sect were defeated by Ling Wushuang and Qing Lian? Suddenly, a tall and burly man among the crowd stood out and questioned. This was also the doubt in many people's hearts. Instantly, everyone's gaze converged on the guard. All of a sudden, he became the center of attention, which made the guard quite happy. Although he was only an insignificant and lowly guard, he was lucky enough to be assigned to maintain order in the Origin Chi Tower, so he saw and heard much more than the other people. Ling Wushuang is the #1 genius of Ling Tian City, and Qing Lian is a more outstanding disciple of Jade Maiden Star Court. These two people's strength is inferior to Shu Tianliang and Zhu Kai, so naturally, they don't have the ability to challenge Shu Tianliang and Zhu Kai. The guard shook his head and said, "Then how did they obtain the inheritances? Could it be that Shu Tianliang and Zhu Kai were kind enough to give them away?" The burly man continued to ask with his arms crossed. He. Speaking of this, we have to mention one person. That person's name is Zhuowen. It's said that he's only a genius from a low-level city, but he rose up in the Origin Chi Tower and became this year's Origin Chi Tower's biggest dark horse. According to what I know, Zhu Kai and Shu Tianliang were eliminated by this Zhuowen at the same time. And this child is also magnanimous. He directly gave up the inheritances of Shu Tianliang and Zhu Kai, but he stubbornly chose the terrifying blood demon inheritance. I'm afraid this child has already died. What a pity for such a prodigy. Speaking of this, the guard's face revealed a rare trace of emotion and regret. He was originally a lowly person, and a genius like Zhuowen who rose up from nothing easily resonated with him. It was a pity that the heavens were jealous of geniuses. The surrounding crowd also fell silent. They had long heard of Zhuowen's name, and his various deeds in the Origin Chi Tower had long been spread throughout the county. However, what they didn't know was that Zhuowen had actually eliminated super geniuses like Shu Tianliang and Zhu Kai at the same time. It was indeed terrifying. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, an extremely frightening tremor occurred in the entire county. It was as if an extremely terrifying earthquake had occurred in the county. At the same time, a huge pillar of blood shot out from the Origin Chi Tower. The originally clear blue sky was now dyed a strange blood-red color. Countless amounts of blood chi filled the air, dyeing the entire county blood-red. What's going on? Is there an abnormal movement in the Origin Chi Tower? The guards and a group of people not far from the Origin Chi Tower were all lying on the ground, trembling. Their eyes were filled with reverence as they stared at the towering Origin Chi Tower in front of them. The towering pillar of blood and the violent tremor immediately attracted the attention of countless forces in the county. In an instant, countless warriors rushed towards the Origin Chi Tower. They all wanted to see what was happening in the Origin Chi Tower. Whoosh, whoosh. Two figures stepped out from the blood pillar. These two figures' appearances were extremely strange. One of them had unkempt hair and a dirty face. His clothes were ragged, and he looked like a down-and-out beggar. The other person was rather young. He had black hair and black clothes, and he carried a green coffin on his back. His body that was like a spear shaft emitted a fierce aura that made people unable to look directly at him. Motherfucker, the commotion is too big. The beggar-like man opened his mouth and cursed. It was incomparably vulgar. Big brother Han Tian, your commotion is indeed too big. Let's quickly leave this place. Otherwise, we'll really be targeted by all the forces in the county. The black-haired youth helplessly spread out his hands. Let's go. Let's leave this place first. The beggar-like man waved his sleeve, and the two instantly disappeared without a trace. The guards that were originally lying on the ground secretly looked at the two people that disappeared in the sky. Especially when they saw the youth carrying the green coffin, they felt that the youth was somewhat familiar. Chapter 577. The 100-Year Brew Restaurant. The appearance of the blood pillar shook the entire county. A swarm of locust-like figures flitted towards the Origin Energy Tower in the center of the county. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Dozens of figures with terrifying auras instantly arrived in the air above the Origin Energy Tower. They walked through the air like immortals. They're all ultimate Emperor realm experts. The nearest guards and the dozens of commoners beside them couldn't help but gulp when they saw the dozens of figures walking through the air. Only cultivators at the ultimate Emperor realm and above were capable of flying through the air. Now that so many legendary powerhouses had gathered here, the commoners were naturally filled with awe and curiosity. At the very front of these figures was a middle-aged man in blue robes. He had a solemn expression on his face as he stared at the enormous blood pillar in the air above the Origin Energy Tower. Brother Lu. What's going on? Why did something like this suddenly happen to the Origin Energy Tower? The master of the meteorite arrived in front of Lu Nantian, her beautiful eyes filled with confusion. At the same time, Marquis Baichuan Shu Chang, Marquis Yongsheng Qin Nai, and the head of the ruling sword school, Shenyuan Li, all gathered in the air above the Origin Energy Tower with similar expressions of confusion. I'm not sure either. Lu Nantian shook his head. In truth, he was also extremely puzzled. After the battle for the Origin Energy Tower, the tower should have been completely closed. How could such a huge commotion have occurred? Let's ask the commoners below. They were nearby when the Origin Energy Tower changed. Let's see what they have to say. LV Nanshan's gaze quickly fell on the guard and the people behind him who were looking up at him. Millimeter. These commoners might have some clues. The few of them agreed one after another. Soon after, LV Nantian led the rest of the group and landed on the empty ground below. They slowly walked towards the somewhat bewildered and helpless guards. The guards and the crowd behind them were extremely nervous when they saw LV Nantian and the other experts walking towards them. Ultimate Emperor Realm experts were lofty existences to them, as unreachable as gods. However, these existences had actually taken the initiative to walk towards them, and in a group at that. How could the guards and the others not be nervous and excited? Can you tell us what happened in the Origin Energy Tower just now? Lu Nantian asked indifferently. The guard lowered his head slightly as his eyes flickered incessantly. However, his heart was filled with excitement. He did not expect that the #1 expert in Muqin County, Lu Nantian, would actually take the initiative to ask a lowly guard like him. The guard hurriedly cupped his hands and respectfully said, "This lowly one doesn't know the specifics," but not long after the blood pillar appeared, 2 figures appeared in the Origin Energy Tower. They immediately disappeared into the sky. 2 figures? You said 2 people came out of the Origin Energy Tower? When the guard said this, LV Nantian and the magnates behind him were all stunned. The tower had been closed for almost 2 months, and there were still people coming out from it. Moreover, there were 2 of them. In that instant, everyone thought of Zhuowen, who was still trapped in the Origin Energy Tower. Because Zhuowen had stubbornly chosen to inherit the Blood Devil's inheritance and didn't leave the tower on time, everyone had subconsciously thought that Zhuowen had died. But now, the guard's words had undoubtedly overturned their assumption that Zhuowen had died. It was very likely that Zhuowen was still alive. Can you describe the appearance of these 2 people in detail? Lu Nantian asked with bright eyes. He knew that if Zhuowen hadn't died, it was very likely that he had obtained the Blood Devil's inheritance in the end. As for why he had only come out now, it was probably because he had encountered some obstacles in the inheritance and was delayed. I also didn't see very clearly. One of them was middle-aged, and his clothes were ragged like a beggar. The other was young, and the youth was carrying a large green coffin on his back. The guard honestly replied. His strength wasn't high, so his eyesight wasn't that sharp. He didn't see the appearance of the 2 people clearly. 2 people? The youth was carrying a bronze coffin? After hearing the guard's description, Lu Nantian and the others revealed a trace of doubt. Originally, they thought that the youth was most likely Zhuowen, but they remembered that Zhuowen wasn't carrying anything on his back, let alone something as strange as a bronze coffin. Could it be that it wasn't Zhuowen? Then who could it be? Lu Nantian was somewhat bewildered. In the noisy street, 2 unique figures slowly walked among the crowd, attracting the attention of many people in the surroundings as they whispered to each other. Zhuowen. Could it be that the 2 of us are very strange? Why are there so many people pointing at us? Lu Hantian, who was wearing ragged clothes and looked like a beggar, casually asked as he looked around on the street. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "They are pointing at you. I'm very normal, okay? Look at you, you're completely like a beggar. It's normal for them to point at you. You're not much better than me, right? Your clothes are also ragged, and you're carrying a coffin. Compared to you, I'm considered normal." Lu Hantian shook his finger and laughed. Zhuowen realized that he was actually speechless. Speaking of which, carrying a coffin on his back was indeed extremely strange, but Zhuowen would not easily take down the devil-suppressing green coffin. The longer he carried this thing, the more his cultivation would increase. The power of the blood demon within the coffin was constantly increasing his cultivation and strength. How could he let go of such benefits? I haven't come out for nearly 100 years. I didn't expect that the changes in the county capital weren't that great. Perhaps it was because he had been trapped in the blood demon's inheritance ground for too long, but Lu Hantian looked around on the street like a country bumpkin. This kind of behavior also attracted many disdainful and contemptuous gazes. Hey! Even the 100-year-old winehouse is still here. Haha, I haven't had a good drink in a long time. Zhuoan, accompany me for a good drink today to celebrate our successful escape. Lu Hantian seemed to have seen something interesting. He hurriedly pulled Zhuoan and stopped in front of an extremely luxurious restaurant. The restaurant in front of them was called the 100-year-old Winehouse. It occupied an area of nearly 100 li, and the entire restaurant was shaped like a tower. It actually had a total of 100 floors, and every floor was filled with customers. It was crowded and bustling, and business was extremely hot. Brat. This 100-year-old winehouse is a good place. The fine wine inside is extremely delicious. The wine fragrance is mellow, and the aftertaste is endless. If you drink a cup of it, you definitely won't be able to stop. Hey. Speaking of wine, Lu Hantian's smile suddenly became extremely wretched. Hey, you two poor beggars, this is not a place where you two can come. Hurry up and scram. When Lu Hantian was about to bring Zhuoan in, a burly man at the entrance of the 100-year-old winehouse extended his right hand and blocked Lu Hantian's path. His eyes were wide open, and his gaze was filled with warning. Scram. Lu Hantian couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the burly man. With a light shout, a surge of energy condensed within the sound wave, causing the burly man to retreat repeatedly. With a muffled groan, he spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the burly man's face was filled with fear. He could be considered a heavenly king stage expert, but this person had actually heavily injured him with a light shout. What kind of strength did this require? This person was definitely an expert above the ultimate emperor stage. He had never even heard of a technique like using sound waves to injure someone. In the 100-year-old winehouse, there were also many people who had noticed the commotion between Lu Hantian and the burly man. Especially when they saw that Lu Hantian had actually injured the heavenly king stage expert with a single shout, they all revealed expressions of shock. This person is so strong. Using sound waves to injure people, he must be at least an ultimate emperor stage expert. I really didn't expect such an unremarkable old beggar to be so strong. This old beggar is indeed strong. I wonder how strong the coffin-carrying youth beside him is. I'm afraid he won't be too weak. In the restaurant, many people stared at Lu Hantian and Zhuoan with fear in their eyes. It was obvious that they had already treated the two of them as reclusive experts. My lords, this lowly one has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I hope that the two of you can forgive me. Please come in. The burly gatekeeper hurriedly stood up. How could he not know that the old beggar in ragged clothes in front of him was far from someone he could contend against? He was already filled with regret, secretly hating himself for judging a book by its cover. He stepped aside with a fawning smile on his face. Wouldn't it have been better if you had let us in earlier? You would have suffered less physical pain. Lu Hantian's performance was extremely domineering. He directly led Zhuoan into the restaurant, not even sparing a glance at the burly man. Looking at the burly man who had his head lowered and was silent at the door, as well as Lu Hantian's matter-of-fact expression, Zhuoan couldn't help but sigh inwardly. In this world, the strong were respected. As long as you had the strength, you could do whatever you wanted. What rules? What restrictions? To a true expert, they existed in name only. They couldn't even withstand a single blow. After entering the restaurant, many people stared at Zhuoan and Lu Hantian with fear. The scene of Lu Hantian injuring the burly man with his sound wave had already made them guess that Lu Hantian was a reclusive expert. No one dared to provoke such a person. The 100-year brew restaurant has a total of 100 floors. Each floor is more luxurious than the last. Furthermore, the wine on each floor is more delicious than the last. The wine on the 100th floor is simply the finest wine. When the time comes, Big Brother will let you taste what is called a delicacy in the world. Haha. As he spoke, Lu Hantian led Zhuowen to the top floor without stopping. The two people's strange appearance naturally attracted the strange gazes of the customers on the other floors. However, the two of them didn't care about the strange gazes around them. At the entrance of the 100th floor, two burly men who were like iron towers coldly stared at Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. They said, "This is the province capital. Only people from the 5 superpowers can enter. The two of you don't look like people from any superpowers. I advise the two of you to leave this place." Although one of the burly men's gaze was cold, his tone was rather polite. Although Lu Hantian and Zhuowen were dressed strangely, their auras were quite powerful. The two burly men didn't want to offend them too much. Moreover, the two burly men had heard of Lu Hantian injuring someone with his sound wave. Thus, their attitude wasn't that bad. They only planned to chase the two of them below the 100th floor. Chapter 578. Schumacher thump. 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 The crisp sound of footsteps echoed in the restaurant as a group of 7 or 8 people walked up the stairs to the 100th floor. The person in the lead was a young woman. This woman was dressed in yellow silk. Her skin was snow-white, and her figure was voluptuous. She could be considered a beauty with good looks. However, the coldness that was revealed between her brows destroyed this woman's overall beauty. To Zhuowen's surprise, all 8 of them were actually Ultimate Emperor Realm experts based on the auras they faintly emanated. The strongest amongst them was the woman in yellow, and she was actually a second-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert at the initial Emperor Realm. As for the others, they were basically all at the Ultimate King Realm. However, there was one person who caught Zhuowen's attention. It was a young man with a cold expression who followed closely behind the woman in yellow. This person's aura was rather strange. Although he looked like an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, Zhuowen's sharp senses told him that this young man's strength was not simple. He was probably hiding his true cultivation level. It's actually the 3rd princess of the Marquis of Baichuan's residence, Schumacher. She doesn't like to drink. Why has she come to the 100-Year Brew restaurant today? The 3rd princess probably isn't here to drink, right? Those who can enter the 100th floor of the 100-Year Brew are basically people from the 5 superforces. She's probably here to meet some important person. Many people on the 99th floor recognized the woman in yellow and her group. They were all whispering and guessing Schumacher's motive for entering the 100th floor. Marquis of Baichuan's residence. With Zhuowen's hearing, he naturally heard the discussions of many people around him. Especially when he heard the words Baichuan Marquis residence, his eyes could not help but narrow. The grudge between him and the Marquis of Baichuan's residence was not small. If Xu Chang and Xu Tianliang knew that Zhuowen had come out of the Origin Qi Tower alive, they would probably not be able to eat or sleep in peace. They might even attack him directly. I never thought that Princess Mai would come to our 100-Year Brew. It's truly an honor. As soon as the yellow-clothed woman arrived, the 2 burly men guarding the door had smiles plastered on their faces. They even had fawning expressions on their faces as they hurriedly made way for her to enter the staircase and respectfully made an inviting gesture. The yellow-clothed woman's cold and pretty face was filled with arrogance. She casually glanced at the sloppy Lu Hantian and Zhuowen, who was carrying a coffin. Her long, shapely eyebrows slightly wrinkled, and her beautiful eyes had a trace of undisguised disgust. Your 100-Year Brew is considered a major force in the prefecture capital. How could you allow these 2 sloppy fellows to enter the restaurant and even reach the 99th floor? Schumacher shook her head and spoke in a somewhat harsh tone, causing Zhuowen and Lu Hantian to frown. Princess Mai is right. Our 100-Year Brew will deal with this matter properly. Please enter. The 2 burly men smiled and hurriedly made an inviting gesture. However, they were not in a hurry to chase away Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. The 2 burly men knew that the 2 unremarkable people in front of them were not ordinary people. Naturally, they would not be too ruthless. Seeing that the 2 burly men did not immediately chase away Zhuowen and Lu Hantian, Schumacher's shapely eyebrows slightly wrinkled. A trace of discomfort flashed across her eyes. She could faintly feel that the young man with the coffin was looking at her with a slightly unfriendly gaze. Although this sort of feeling was somewhat baffling, it still caused her to feel uncomfortable. Thus, her words earlier were actually for the two burly men to drive away those two strange people. However, the two burly men did not do that. Instead, they pretended to be ignorant. I don't really want to see these two people. I believe that the two of you understand what I mean. I don't need my men to deal with such a small matter, right? Shu Mai was not in a hurry to enter the staircase. Her gaze was also not on Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. Instead, she stared straight at the two burly men. In her opinion, Zhuowen and Lu Hantian did not have the qualifications for her to look at them in the eye. Although the young man with the coffin gave her an uncomfortable feeling, this was not the Marquis Baichuan's residence. She could not possibly turn the tables and make a move here. Naturally, this kind of thing could only be done by the people of the 100-Year Brew. Since Shu Mai had already said this, the two burly men naturally did not play dumb. They could only brace themselves and look at Zhuowen and Lu Hantian and say, "The two of you. There are a few private rooms on the 99th floor. Why don't the two of you take a rest in one of the private rooms and order some dishes?" Although Lu Hantian's performance at the entrance of the restaurant was extremely valiant and powerful, Shu Mai was still a direct descendant of the Marquis Baichuan's residence. This woman represented the Marquis Baichuan's residence, which was a huge superpower. In front of such a superpower, an individual's strength was insignificant. Therefore, they naturally did not want to offend Shu Mai. When she heard that the two burly men were not chasing away Zhuowen and Lu Hantian, but were instead courteously offering them a private room, Shu Mai's beautiful face finally darkened. Her tone became more serious as she said, "The two of you might not understand what I mean, right? Then I'll make it clear. Immediately chase these two people out of the 100-Year Brew. I don't want to eat in the same restaurant as such sloppy people." Zhuowen and Lu Hantian had been watching coldly from the sidelines. Especially Zhuowen. The way he looked at Shu Mai was as if he was watching a monkey perform. The corner of his mouth was filled with a cold smile. If this woman knew the true identity of the unkempt beggar standing beside her, who knew how she would feel? Shu Mai was incomparably arrogant and looked down on everyone. Zhuowen had seen it before. Originally, he did not have a good impression of the Marquis Baichuan's residence, but now, he had even sentenced them to death. Indeed, like father like son. Marquis Baichuan's character was not good, but his children were worse than him. The two burly men immediately felt awkward. At the same time, there was a trace of anger in their hearts. Their 100-Year Brew was open for business, and they were not servants of the Marquis Baichuan's residence. Allowing Shu Mai to order them around and openly chase away customers would definitely damage the reputation of their 100-Year Brew. At this moment, Shu Mai seemed to have sensed something. Her arrogant eyes glanced at Zhuowen and immediately saw the cold smile and disdain on the corner of Zhuowen's mouth. "What are you laughing at? Who gave you the guts to laugh at me? I'll give you a chance now. Slap yourself 50 times and get out of the 100-Year Brew immediately. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." Shu Mai coldly shouted at Zhuowen. The cold smile on the corner of Zhuowen's mouth slowly froze. Zhuowen's face finally turned cold. He, Zhuowen, had not provoked this Shu Mai from the start. Instead, this unruly and willful Shu Mai had taken the initiative to find trouble with him. This caused his heart to be filled with killing intent. Slap yourself 50 times? Get out of the 100-Year Brew? With just you? Zhuowen said in a low voice. Yo. A trash like you dares to jump on top of my head? Who gave you the guts? I'll give you one more chance. I'll count to 3. If you don't get out of here by then, you'll have to stay here forever. Shu Mai slowly pulled out the sword in her hand and sneered. At the same time, the 7 people behind Shu Mai all pulled out their weapons. Extremely terrifying auras burst out from their bodies. All of them were at the ultimate Emperor realm, causing cyclones to sweep out in all directions. Those two are in for it. They should have just left obediently. Now, I'm afraid they won't be able to leave even if they want to. The two brawny men helplessly shook their heads. They had already done their best just now. However, these two clearly did not appreciate it. Not only did they not leave, they had even angered Shu Mai, who was also known as Little Chili Pepper. Facing the powerful auras of Shu Mai and the others, Zhuowen did not feel the slightest bit of discomfort. Instead, he was extremely calm as he slowly said, "From the start, the two of us did not provoke you, right? We didn't even say a single word. Furthermore, we have never met before. So why are you forcing us to get out of the 100-year brew today? You should at least give a reason." Haha. Reason? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Our princess doesn't like you and wants you to get out. Do you think she needs a reason? If she asks you to get out, then get out. If you don't, then you'll have to bear the consequences. A young man with a protruding mouth and ape-like cheeks who was standing in front of Shu Mai immediately stepped forward and pointed his sword at Zhuowen. His attitude was extremely arrogant. It was obvious that he wanted to put on a good show in front of Shu Mai. However, before the young man with a protruding mouth and ape-like cheeks could finish speaking, he suddenly felt his neck tighten. Following that, he realized in horror that Zhuowen, who was originally 10 meters away from him, had unknowingly appeared in front of him. Furthermore, he did not know when his neck had been lifted up by Zhuowen's hand, as if he was carrying a little chick. He only heard the black-haired young man who was carrying a green coffin on his back say slowly, "Did I say you could speak?" At this moment, the young man with a protruding mouth and ape-like cheeks had bulging eyes that were filled with fear. He did not even see how Zhuowen had made his move. He was casually lifted up by Zhuowen and was unable to break free no matter how hard he tried. Shu Mai and the rest were all shocked. They also did not see how Zhuowen had made his move. They only saw a blur in front of their eyes, and the young man with a protruding mouth and ape-like cheeks, who was originally full of vigor, was lifted off the ground by Zhuowen single-handedly. The young man struggled with all his might. "How dare you? Why aren't you letting Shu Gang go? You only have one chance now. Let Shu Gang go immediately and break one of your arms. If you do that, we might still let you live." Although Shu Mai was slightly shocked to see her own people being humiliated by Zhuowen right in front of her eyes, she was even more furious. No one had ever dared to disobey her in front of her. Haha. Break one of my arms? Let me live. Seeing that Shu Mai was still putting on the airs of a princess, Zhuowen's killing intent erupted like a volcano. He looked at Shu Mai with even more disgust. "That's right. You have already committed a grave sin by offending this princess. However, if you let Shu Gang go now, this princess can spare your life. You only need to break one of your arms. This is already the greatest kindness this princess can show you." Shu Mai nodded her head with a matter-of-fact look on her face. "Looks like the princess is indeed benevolent. He is already in my hands and you actually want me to let him go before breaking one of your arms. Haha, how benevolent." Chapter 579. The escalating conflict crack. The clear sound of bones breaking reverberated throughout the entire restaurant. Soon after, everyone discovered that the head of the monkey-faced Shu Gang was strangely bent at this moment. His eyes were bulging, and he was actually deader than dead. Killed. Someone from the house of Baichuan was actually killed just like that. Moreover, he was an ultimate emperor realm cultivator. It wasn't easy to nurture such an expert. At this moment, everyone was looking at the calm-looking youth with the green coffin on his back. Their gazes were filled with reverence. This kid looked to be around 19 years old, but he was actually able to kill Shu Gang with a wave of his hand. This kid's cultivation and talent were terrifying. The two brawny men at the staircase were also stunned at this moment. The two of them did not expect that things would develop to this point. Zhuowen killed Shu Gang, which meant that he had a death feud with the Baichuan Marquis residents. This was not a simple matter. "You killed Shu Gang?" Only now did Shu Mai regain her senses. She was so angry that her delicate body trembled. "Yes. He was just a lackey. Is there a problem with me killing him?" Zhuowen nodded seriously. With a toss of his right hand, the lifeless Shu Gang was tossed to Shu Mai's feet by Zhuowen. His actions were as calm as water, without any ripples. Lu Hantian, who was standing beside Zhuowen, didn't do anything. He only silently looked at Zhuowen with a trace of admiration in his eyes. Survival of the fittest was the only rule in this world. If you showed any mercy, others would take advantage of you. Lu Hantian was naturally satisfied with Zhuowen's decisive and ruthless methods. Originally, he was worried that Zhuowen was still young and didn't understand the ways of the world. His previous arrogant actions were purposely to make Zhuowen think deeply and let him know that this was a world where the strong were respected. But now that he saw Zhuowen make a move, he knew that his worries were unnecessary. This kid had done far better than he had imagined. Good, good, good. How courageous. You actually dared to kill the people of my Baichuan Marquis residence. It has been a long time since someone dared to provoke me. Today, this princess will pull out your tendons and peel off your bones. You will be in so much pain that you will wish you were dead. Men, capture me for these two fellows who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Shu Maya furrowed her brows and suppressed her anger. With a wave of her jade-like hand, the remaining 5 people behind her surrounded Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. As for the cold and indifferent youth with an obscure aura, he did not step forward. Instead, he stood silently beside Shu Mai-er. Evidently, he was Shu Mai-er's personal bodyguard. Princess Mai-er. This is the century-old wine house, and fighting is not allowed. I hope that the princess can give us some face. The development of the situation had already exceeded the 2 burly men's expectations. Although Shu Mai-er had a noble status and was a direct descendant of the Baichuan Marquis residence, that Zhuowen was even more mysterious and terrifying. To be able to kill an ultimate Emperor Realm expert with a single move, one had to be at least a third-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm expert. This Zhuowen looked to be around 19 years old. To be able to achieve this at such a young age, the power behind this kid was probably not weak. Therefore, the 2 burly men did not want to offend both of them at the same time. Haha. Fighting is not allowed. Are the 2 of you blind? My people were killed. This bastard attacked first. Now that we are retaliating, you are saying that we cannot fight. Could it be that your century-old wine house is purposely picking a fight with our Baichuan Marquis residence? Shu Mai-er retorted with a cold snort. The 2 burly men were instantly speechless. Shu Mai-er was right. However, Zhuowen had acted too quickly. They had not been able to stop him before Shu Gang was killed. It was this bastard who attacked first. Therefore, you can ignore the century-old wine house. Today, this princess will take down these 2 unless the owner of the century-old wine house, Zui Wang, comes. Do it. As she spoke, Shu Mai-er waved her jade-like hand. The 5 people surrounding Zhuowen immediately let out a sinister laugh as they brandished their weapons. The aura of an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator suddenly erupted from their bodies. Although Zhuowen had instantly killed Shu Gang with a single move, causing the 5 of them to be rather fearful, most of them believed that Zhuowen had launched a sneak attack first, which was why he had been able to kill Shu Gang so easily. However, now that the 5 of them had joined forces, this Zhuowen was as easy as pie. 5 first-wheel Emperor Realm cultivators joining forces. That black-haired youth is in for it. This kind of lineup is enough to heavily injure a second-wheel Emperor Realm cultivator. Even if this youth is a second-wheel Emperor Realm cultivator, he's probably in for it. Many people in the restaurant were watching the show. Their gazes were focused on this side, especially when they saw Shu Mai-er and the other 4 surrounding Zhuowen. They all shook their heads and sighed. Kid, you can only blame your bad luck for offending our princess. Although your strength isn't bad, I'm afraid that you're not a match for the 5 of us. If you die, don't blame us when you go to hell. The 5 of them spoke one after another, their faces filled with confidence. However, just as they drew their weapons, a cold light flashed past like a bright moon. The 5 of them were completely stunned on the spot and didn't move an inch. They saw Zhuowen casually stroll out of the encirclement. At some point in time, a huge bone spear had appeared in his hand. The cold light that had flashed just now had actually come from this bone spear. You guys talk too much. Remember to speak less when you go to hell. Otherwise, you'll make a mistake if you talk too much. Zhuowen lightly flicked the tip of the spear with a cold expression. Spurt. The moment Zhuoan walked out of the encirclement, a line of blood appeared on the necks of the 5 people. Then, blood spurted out from their necks like a fountain. The 5 of them clutched their necks tightly, their faces filled with shock and fear. They didn't even see how Zhuoan had attacked. Boom. 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 With despair in their eyes, the 5 of them fell to the ground one after another. The sound of heavy objects falling to the ground resounded throughout the restaurant. A spear to the throat, blood splattered all 5 of them. At this moment, the entire restaurant was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Only the sound of blood splashing echoed in the silent restaurant. Whether it was Shu Mai, the 2 burly men, or the other customers at the tables in the hall, they were all stunned at this moment. Their faces were filled with disbelief. 5 lofty Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators had died so easily right before their very eyes in an instant. Hiss. Hiss. After a long period of silence, the sound of sharp inhales of cold air rang out. Everyone's gazes changed as they looked at the calm youth. This kid was too terrifying. He'd completely annihilated 5 Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioners with a single move. At this moment, the 2 burly men's hearts were filled with joy. They hadn't expected that the seemingly down-and-out youth in front of them would actually possess such terrifying strength. Fortunately, they hadn't offended him before. Otherwise, their fates wouldn't have been any better. Thump. 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 Zhuoan gently wiped off the blood on the tip of his spear as he strolled towards Shu Mai with a smile on his face. You. What do you want? The arrogance on Shu Mai's face had long since disappeared as she watched Zhuoan approach. Instead, it was replaced by deep fear. The youth in front of her was too terrifying. 5 Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioners had joined forces, yet he'd defeated them in a single move. His strength had probably long surpassed that of an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. He was probably at least at the 3rd Emperor Realm. I'll give you one last chance. If you leave this place now, I won't pursue the matter from before. You'd best not push your luck. Otherwise, you won't have a good ending. Shu Mai's face was gloomy as she spoke in a deep voice. Zhuoan turned a deaf ear to her words and continued to walk towards Shu Mai. The bone spear in his hand gave off an even sharper aura. You forced me to do this. Zhuoan's actions had already made his answer clear. Shu Mai's face couldn't help but darken as she said in a deep voice, Shu Ling, it's time for you to act. This kid refuses a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Teach him a good lesson. The moment Shu Mai's words left her mouth, the cold-looking man beside her took a step forward, a rare trace of caution appearing on his cold face. Zhuoan gave him an extremely powerful feeling, but his duty was to protect Shu Mai, so he had no choice but to take action. Brother, I'm sorry. You've already killed 6 people from my house of Marquis of Baichuan. Moreover, they were all core disciples of the house of Marquis of Baichuan. I'm sure your anger has dissipated. The cold man named Shu Ling spoke in a fearful tone. Haha. What a nice forgive. If I wasn't strong enough today, would your princess have forgiven me? Now that you've discovered that you're weaker than me, you want me to forgive you? Don't you find it laughable? Zhuoan sneered as he paused his steps. Shu Ling frowned and said helplessly, you should have heard of the house of Marquis of Baichuan, right? Princess Mai is a direct descendant of the house of Marquis of Baichuan. Her status is high. If you touch her, I'm afraid that the house of Marquis of Baichuan will not let you off easily. Hee. There's not much difference between letting her off and not letting her off. Do you think that if I let her off now, she'll be magnanimous enough to forgive me and not take revenge on me? How laughable. Zhuoan's mocking expression became even more intense. Looks like you don't intend to let us off. Then there's nothing to talk about. I think you'll regret it. Shu Ling's lips curled into a cold smile as he suddenly stepped forward. A vast aura as vast as the sea surged out from his body. The space around him distorted as a cyclone enveloped his entire body. 3-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm Practitioner? This Shu Ling is actually an Ultimate Emperor Realm Practitioner. He's really hidden it well. I actually couldn't tell just now. After Shu Ling had displayed his strength, cries of surprise rose and fell in the restaurant. Xu Ling's sudden outburst had caused many people to be inexplicably shocked. I've already given you a chance just now. Since you didn't cherish it, no one can save you now. Once he released his aura, Xu Ling's lips curled into a sinister smile. He stared coldly at Zhuowen, his face filled with confidence that victory was within his grasp. Bastard. Once Xu Ling makes his move, you'll definitely die. It's too late for you to beg for mercy now. Xu Maya crossed her arms in front of her chest as the corners of her mouth curled into a cruel sneer. That's right. No one can save you now. Zhuowen shook his head and gently waved the bone spear in his hand. The beginner spear intent that he had just grasped suddenly surged out. Instantly, the surrounding space distorted and time stopped. Chapter 580. Old Man Zui Wang, how is this possible? How can you be so strong? Zhuowen and Xu Ling passed by each other. Everything seemed normal, but Xu Ling's eyes were slightly bulging. Only he saw that when the youth in front of him passed by him, the bone spear in the youth's hand moved. Unmoving like a mountain, moving like a thunderbolt, Zhuowen's spear was fast to the extreme. Although Xu Ling could feel Zhuowen's spear move, his reaction was unable to catch the slightest trace of it. Fast. It was too fast. This was not a spear technique that an ordinary warrior could use. In the entire restaurant, only 2 people saw Zhuowen's spear. One of them was Xu Ling, and the other was the shabbily dressed Lu Hantian. This kid's formlessness is indeed heaven-defying. He has only been in contact with spear intent for a short while, but he is already able to use it with ease. Although it is only elementary spear intent, if it is used well, it is enough to instantly kill a warrior of the same level. Looking at Zhuowen's back, the satisfaction in Lu Hantian's eyes became even more intense. The more heaven-defying Zhuowen's performance was, the happier he felt. It was as if he was watching his own child continuously grow up in front of him. Other than these 2 people, the rest of the people in the restaurant only saw Zhuowen casually pass by Xu Ling. Then, Xu Ling was like a fool, standing in a daze on the spot, as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. What's going on? What happened just now? Did Xu Ling become a fool? Just now, I only saw that after the black-haired youth and Xu Ling passed by each other, Xu Ling was stunned. Could it be that he was possessed? In the restaurant, everyone's faces were filled with puzzlement. Xu Ling's abnormal behavior was too strange in their eyes. Deng deng deng. Crisp footsteps slowly sounded. After passing by Xu Ling, Zhuowen held the spear in his hand and once again walked towards Xu Maya. He was leisurely and carefree. Xu Ling. What are you doing? You were sent by my father to protect me. Do you dare to disobey my orders? At this moment, Xu Maya sensed that something was wrong, especially when she saw Zhuowen slowly walking over. She couldn't help but slowly retreat. She shouted at Xu Ling behind Zhuowen, who seemed to be in a daze. Poochie. An arrow of blood shot towards the sky. Xu Ling, who was stunned on the spot, let out a furious roar towards the sky. Fresh blood gushed out from his mouth like a fountain. Both of his eyes were furiously widened. After which, he slowly fell to the ground, dying with his eyes wide open. Xu Ling, an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator with 3 wheels, had still been insta-killed. Hiss hiss hiss. Gasps rang out one after another. Everyone stared in disbelief at the lifeless Xu Ling. A mighty ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator had died just like that in the blink of an eye. Moreover, he had died with his eyes wide open. Immediately, everyone's gazes gathered on the calm and carefree young man once more. Their gazes had changed. If this kid had insta-killed 5 ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators with a single move, they wouldn't have been too surprised. However, even a ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator like Xu Ling had been insta-killed. Just how terrifying was this kid's strength? This kid couldn't be offended. At this moment, the same thought flashed through the minds of everyone in the restaurant. To be able to insta-kill an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator with a single move, he had to be at least at the peak of the ultimate Emperor Realm. It was even possible that he was at the 4th ultimate Emperor Realm. This kid was only around 19 years old. To be able to achieve such accomplishments at such a young age, His talent was already comparable to the 5 super geniuses of Muqin County. This kid's background was definitely not simple. The hearts of the 2 burly men guarding the staircase were currently in turmoil. They couldn't calm down at all. Zhuowen's performance was just too shocking. To be able to insta-kill an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator with such talent and strength wasn't someone the 2 of them could afford to offend. However, the 2 of them were extremely glad that they hadn't offended this mysterious young man. Xu Mai'er no longer had the arrogance from before. Even Xu Ling had been insta-killed by Zhuowen. She knew that she had probably kicked an iron plate this time. However, the fluke in her heart still allowed her to muster up her courage and say, "I'm the 3rd daughter of Marquis Baichuan. If you kill me, my father won't let you off. I think it's best if you don't go too far." Thud. Zhuowen stood still and stared at the cowardly Xu Mai'er in front of him. His eyes were filled with disdain as he gently raised his right hand. Slap. A clear sound rang out faintly. Following that, everyone was shocked to discover that the right side of Xu Mai'er's beautiful face had swollen up. It was an exceptionally comical sight. Not only were the people in the restaurant stunned, even the person involved, Xu Mai'er, was stunned. She had never been hit by anyone in her entire life. Now, she had been slapped in front of so many people. "Don't go too far. Shouldn't I be the one saying that to you? From the start, I didn't say a single word, nor did I do a single thing. Then, you found trouble with me and asked me to slap myself. After I refused, you ordered people to capture me and pull out my tendons and peel off my bones. My life is worse than death. If I wasn't strong enough today, would I really be tortured to death by you? Then tell me, do you have the right to say that?" At this point, Zhuowen's voice became extremely loud. When the people in the restaurant heard this, they all nodded their heads. It was indeed as Zhuowen had said. At the start, Zhuowen didn't say a single word. Instead, it was Xu Mai'er who was so overbearing that Zhuowen rose to resist. Speaking of which, Xu Mai'er was simply reaping what she had sown. "You dare to hit me? No one has ever dared to hit me. You actually dared to hit me. I'll kill you." After being slapped, Xu Mai'er had clearly lost her mind. She waved the long sword in her hand and directly stabbed it towards Zhuowen's chest. Her beautiful face was filled with madness. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. With a cold laugh, Zhuowen flicked his finger. A golden radiance burst out and accurately hit the long sword. Instantly, the long sword in Xu Mai'er's hand shattered inch by inch. Slap. Another crisp sound rang out. Zhuowen had slapped Xu Mai'er again. This time, he didn't show any mercy and directly slapped the other side of Xu Mai'er's left cheek. The powerful force directly caused Xu Mai'er's body to spin. After which, she heavily crashed onto the ground. The left side of her face was greatly swollen. Immediately, Xu Mai'er's beautiful face was completely disfigured. She looked like a pig's head. Holding both sides of her face, Xu Mai'er no longer dared to make a sound. She stared fearfully at the calm young man in front of her. She knew that if she continued to be willful, she would be dead for sure. This was because she saw a trace of murderous intent in Zhuowen's eyes. "Stop. How dare you kill a member of the Marquis House of Baichuan? Who gave you the guts to do so?" Just as Zhuowen was about to get rid of Xu Mai'er, a loud shout suddenly rang out from the 100th floor. Following which, Zhuowen felt a terrifying gust of wind behind him. Frowning his brows, he actually felt a trace of threat from the gust of wind behind him. With a cold snort, he moved his feet and instantly dodged the gust of wind. Rumble. The gust of wind whistled past and blasted the pillar that required 3 people to wrap their arms around it. It was instantly reduced to dust. Swoosh. A blue-robed elder came before Xu Mai'er with a furious expression. Looking at the almost unrecognizable Xu Mai'er, the blue-robed elder knitted his brows and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Elder Xu Enyu, you're finally here. Hurry up and help me kill this bastard. How dare he hit me?" Seeing the blue-robed elder, Xu Mai'er suddenly burst into tears. However, her swollen face looked even uglier when she cried. Many people upstairs couldn't help but turn their heads away, not daring to look at her. "It's Xu Enyu. He's one of the inner sect elders of the Marquis House of Baichuan. His strength has reached the initial stage of the ultimate emperor realm. He's also an extremely famous expert in the Marquis House of Baichuan. I'm afraid that young man is going to suffer. When they saw the blue-robed elder clearly, an uproar broke out in the restaurant. Obviously, they had all recognized the blue-robed elder. Brat! Who are you? How dare you kill members of the Marquis House of Baichuan and even hit the third commandery princess? You're really audacious and arrogant. I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your elders. As he spoke, the blue-robed elder stomped his foot. The terrifying aura of the ultimate emperor realm erupted like a volcano. The surrounding air flowed upwards like an upside-down waterfall. Endless waves of energy surged out. It was awe-inspiring and insufferably arrogant. Ultimate Emperor Realm. Zhuo Wen narrowed his eyes. Although he already had his suspicions, when he saw that the blue-robed elder had truly released the aura of a fifth-wheel ultimate emperor, he still felt serious. However, he was also eager to give it a try. He had just broken through to the fifth-wheel ultimate emperor realm not too long ago. He wondered what the outcome would be if he faced a true fifth-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. It's over. That young man is doomed. He can't fight against a ultimate emperor realm expert. It's rare to meet such a monstrous genius. It's a pity that he's going to die soon. Many people around them shook their heads and sighed. Although Zhuowen's performance was astonishing, it was impossible for him to reach the ultimate emperor realm at such a young age. After all, the number one genius of Muqin County, Viatao, had only reached the ultimate emperor realm at the age of 21. They didn't think that this young man, who was less than 20 years old, could reach the ultimate emperor realm. Just as the scene was about to explode, a loud laugh suddenly rang out. It was like a great bell that resounded through the entire 100-year brew. The 100-year brew is so lively today. Let me join in the fun. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure suddenly descended between Zhuo Wen and Xu Enyu. It was an old man with a head full of silver hair, and he wore a black and white robe with long sleeves. Especially his completely red brandy nose, he was exceptionally conspicuous. After he arrived between the two of them, the old man with rosacea touched his waist and withdrew a bottle of wine from his gourd, and then he pulled out the lid before raising his head and fiercely gulping it down. He drank while clicking his tongue with praise, and he completely didn't realize that he was standing between two people that were about to enter into a battle. After sensing two unfriendly gazes, the old man with the rosacea chuckled and said to Zhuowen and Xu Enyu, "Why are you two staring at me? This wine was brewed by me with great effort. A drop is worth thousands of gold. Don't even think about it." As he spoke, he burped. Then, under the strange gazes of the crowd, he fell asleep between Zhuowen and Xu Enyu, snoring loudly. Chapter 581. Lu Hantian was furious. Zhuo Wen stared at the sleeping old man with rosacea in front of him. There was a trace of fear in his eyes. He actually felt an extremely strong threat from this old man. This old man's strength was definitely far beyond Xu Enyu's. At this moment, Xu Enyu's face was also full of fear. He knew the old man with rosacea, who was the founder of the century-old brew restaurant. Although he was not as powerful as the giants of the 5 superpowers in the prefecture, the difference was not big. It was said that he was very close to the 9-wheel emperor realm. Moreover, this Zui Wang old man was known as the number one expert below the 5 magnates. It was because of this Zui Wang old man's backing that the 100-year brew was able to flourish in the provincial capital. Without a strong backing, it would be easy for other forces to suppress it. I didn't expect you to come out, Elder Zui Wang. But as you can see, we didn't offend that little bastard at all, but he killed 7 of us indiscriminately. If I hadn't sensed something wrong, even the third commandery princess would have been killed. I think you're a reasonable person, Elder Zui Wang. Xu Enyu cupped his hands and spoke in a rather courteous tone. As soon as he came up, he pinned a groundless accusation on Zhuo Wen and put the House of Marquis of Baichuan in a weak position. He knew that this old man was not to be trifled with. Naturally, he would not say that all this was caused by the people of the House of Baichuan. As soon as Xu Enyu finished speaking, many people around the restaurant frowned, but no one stood out to say anything. Xu Enyu was the inner elder of the Marquis mansion. His status and strength were extremely great, so they could not afford to offend him. So, they all kept silent. Zui Wang, who was pretending to be asleep, rubbed his eyes and pretended to stand up. He glanced at Xu Enyu indifferently and then fixed his eyes on Zhuowen. He said, "What do you want to say? You killed these people, didn't you? If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Zhuowen shook his head and sneered. Zui Wang frowned slightly and said coldly, "I'm asking you, did you kill these people?" "Yes, I did. But I did it out of self-defense. It was Xu Mai and others who started the trouble." Facing Zui Wang's question, Zhuowen was not afraid at all and said indifferently, "You really have guts. Don't you know that fighting is not allowed in the 100-year wine house? Who gave you the guts to do that? You don't need to quibble. You were the one who made the first move. I've been here for a long time." Old man Zui Wang shook his head. His tone became somewhat cold as a terrifying aura surged out. Zhuowen's eyelids twitched when he sensed drunken old man's powerful aura. This drunken old man was indeed terrifying. Just the aura that he exuded was far beyond that of an ultimate five-wheel emperor. It was no wonder that he was known as the strongest person below the five magnates. This title was not baseless. The moment old man Zui Wang arrived, he immediately put pressure on Zhuowen. This immediately caused many people to be puzzled. They knew that what Zhuowen said was right. The first ones to cause trouble were Xu Mai and the others. However, old man Zui Wang did not pursue the matter with Xu Mai and the others. Instead, he put pressure on Zhuowen. Many people did not understand. On the other hand, Xu Enyu and Xu Mai's lips curled up as they revealed a complacent look. Old man Zui Wang's origin was mysterious. Many people did not know how he rose to power and how he established himself in the county. However, Xu Enyu and Xu Mai knew that old man Zui Wang's rise could not be separated from the support of Marquis Baichuan, Xu Chang. Therefore, old man Zui Wang had a very close relationship with Marquis Baichuan's mansion. However, the others did not know about this. Even the other four superpowers did not know about the relationship between old man Zui Wang and Xu Chang. Old man Zui Wang's sudden attack and the complacent smiles on Xu Enyu and Xu Mai's faces immediately moved Zhuowen. His face turned slightly ugly. Old man Zui Wang had arrived early and did not stop Xu Mai from causing trouble. Now that Xu Mai was in trouble, he appeared in time and attacked Jian Wushuang as soon as he appeared. Perhaps old man Zui Wang's relationship with Marquis Baichuan's mansion was not ordinary. "Oh, are you going to kill me?" Zhuowen stared coldly at old man Zui Wang and said slowly, "Don't worry, I'm not an unreasonable person. Although Xu Mai and the others were at fault, you killed them unreasonably. You're such a cruel person. No matter how talented you are, you'll still be a scourge. I won't kill you, but I can cripple you to prevent you from harming others in the future." Old man Zui Wang sneered and a terrifying aura surrounded him. Suddenly, the air flowed upward and formed a funnel-shaped hurricane. The space collapsed and a black hole appeared vaguely. The wind howled. "So don't blame me for being ruthless. You can only blame yourself for being too arrogant." After saying that, old man Zui Wang stretched out his right hand and directly hit Zhuowen's chest. The sun and the moon reversed and the stars moved. The whole world changed color. "It's over. That young man is doomed. Old man Zui Wang is the strongest person below the five magnates. He's only one step away from reaching the ultimate nine-wheel emperor realm. Such an expert is not someone that he can compete with. Old man Zui Wang is acting a little strange today. He's actually siding with the house of Marquis Baichuan without distinguishing right from wrong. Could it be that the two of them are closely related?" Everyone shook their heads and sighed when they saw old man Zui Wang make his move. They knew that the young man with the green coffin would definitely die. Boom. But soon, everyone was shocked to discover that old man Zui Wang's hand, which had traveled through time and space, had been grabbed by an extremely filthy hand. Then, old man Zui Wang, with his terrifying aura, fell flat on his face. Cripple your ass. Who do you think you are? How dare you touch my brother? I'll cripple you today. At the instant drunken old man fell, an incomparably vulgar voice echoed throughout the restaurant. Following which, the sloppy beggar, who had been motionless before, suddenly appeared in front of Zhuo Wen at some unknown time. Then, a shocking scene suddenly appeared before everyone's eyes. They saw old man Zui Wang, who had been arrogant, fall to the ground. Then, the beggar stepped on him and the dirty sole of his foot made intimate contact with old man Zui Wang's cheek. You're awesome. You're arrogant. Who told you to show off? Who told you to show off? How dare you touch my brother? You won't even be able to show off. The beggar raised his foot and stomped fiercely. Every step landed on old man Zui Wang's cheek. The terrifying smell of his foot almost caused old man Zui Wang to faint. What shocked old man Zui Wang even more was that when he used all his strength to get up and resist, a pressure like the might of the heavens ruthlessly pressed down on his back, causing him to be unable to get up. Who was this person? This pressure was much more terrifying than Marquis Baichuan Xuchang. It wasn't something that an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator could possess. Could this person be a fourth Reverend Realm expert? Old man Zui Wang's eyelids twitched when he thought of this. If this beggar was really a fourth Reverend Realm expert, then he was really unlucky. His heart was already filled with deep regret. If he knew that such an expert existed, how could he have dared to deal with Zhuowen? He really wanted to slap his own mouth. Everyone in the restaurant fell silent. Only the beggar's voice reverberated in the surroundings. His words were vulgar and licentious. Old man Zui Wang, who was originally high and mighty and needed to be looked up to, was now being humiliated and trampled under the beggar's foot. Even a fool could tell that the beggar's strength far surpassed old man Zui Wang's. This beggar was at least a fifth Reverend Realm expert, or even stronger. Everyone couldn't help but gasp when they thought of this possibility. Xu Enyu and Xu Mai, who were watching coldly from the sidelines, were completely dumbfounded. Old man Zui Wang, whose strength was second only to Xu Chang, was humiliated and trampled under the beggar's foot. At this moment, the two of them finally began to pay attention to this shabby beggar. This beggar was probably a hermit expert. My lord, spare my life, please spare my life. I won't dare to do it again. Old man Zui Wang finally couldn't bear it anymore. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. This wasn't a battle of the same level at all. He was being abused. Lu Hantian kicked him a few more times. He let out a long sigh and said, "My feet are so sore. Boy, why don't you kick him a few times too? This human sandbag is pretty good." Hearing this, everyone in the restaurant was shocked. This Lu Hantian didn't have the demeanor of an expert at all. Not only did he speak vulgarly, but his behavior was also similar to that of a commoner. Zhuowen shook his head. He turned his eyes slightly and looked at Xu Enyu and Xu Mai, who were nervous not far away. Feeling Zhuowen's gaze, Xu Enyu and Xu Mai felt numb on their backs. They had seen how ferocious the beggar was, and they knew they couldn't compete with him at all. "Little brother, Xu Enyu didn't know you were this senior's brother. Please forgive me for my rudeness just now." Xu Enyu was quite bold. He hurriedly pulled Xu Mai to kneel down in a very humble manner. Even old man Zui Wang was beaten like that. Xu Enyu naturally didn't dare to show any disrespect. His heart was already filled with fear. "Get out of my way." Zhuowen directly kicked old man Zui Wang away. With Lu Hantian beside him, old man Zui Wang naturally didn't dare to resist. He let Zhuowen kick him and rolled to the side very cooperatively. Many people around were really shocked. Walking slowly to Xu Enyu and Xu Mai, Zhuowen said lightly, "I'm not an unreasonable person. The one who stirred up the trouble was the princess of Marquis Mansion of Baichuan, and you indiscriminately accused me of a crime. That old man Zui Wang even wanted to cripple me directly. Haha, do you think I can tolerate this?" Xu Enyu's heart thumped. He continued, "Little brother, what do you want? Marquis Mansion of Baichuan is not that easy to mess with. Haha. Don't mention Marquis Mansion of Baichuan in front of me, now I'll give you a chance. That is, You and I will fight to the death. If you win, you can leave with that bitch beside you. If you lose, you two will stay here forever. Chapter 582. A battle of life and death. They didn't expect that the young man with the green coffin would challenge Xu Enyu. Although Zhuo Wen's previous performance had been shocking, as he had killed Xu Ling, who was a 3-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert, with a single move, Xu Enyu wasn't someone Xu Ling could compare to. He was a 5-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert, and he wasn't at the same level as Xu Ling. Furthermore, Zhuo Wen was too young. At his age, it was unlikely that he had reached the ultimate level of a 5-wheel Emperor Realm. No matter how one looked at it, challenging Xu Enyu was an act of seeking death. So what exactly was this youth relying on? Xu Enyu's face twitched and he frowned slightly. With the beggar-like Lu Hantian around, he didn't dare to accept the challenge. It was inevitable to be injured in a battle. He was afraid that he would hurt the young man in front of him. Especially when he saw the dying drunkard old man lying on the ground, Xu Enyu didn't dare to accept the challenge. He was really afraid that the beggar would kill him. Don't worry about my big brother. This is between you and me. If you win, you'll be free. If you lose, you'll stay alive. Otherwise, you'll die now, Zhuowen said indifferently. Lu Hantian stepped on drunkard old man's back and struck a pose. He didn't say anything to oppose. Obviously, he had acquiesced to Zhuowen's actions. Okay, I accept. Xu Enyu knew that he had no other choice. He gritted his teeth and agreed. He knew that he only needed to win. He was very confident in his strength. He could easily win without hurting the young man. The corners of Zhuo Wen's mouth curled up slightly. With a stomp of his foot, he leaped down from the top of the restaurant and arrived at an empty space below the restaurant. His loud and clear voice echoed out. This place will be our battlefield. We will fight to the death, and only the winner will be able to leave this place alive. Xu Enyu, get down here now. The loud voice, like the morning bell and evening drum, resounded around the open space. Instantly, everyone on the floor of the 100-year brew house looked at the arrogant young man on the open space below. Who is that? How dare he set up a battle in front of the 100-year brew house? Doesn't he know that private fights are not allowed here? When old man Zui Wang comes out, this kid will be in for a bad time. The person he wanted to challenge seems to be called Xu Enyu. Could it be Xu Enyu, the inner court elder of Marquis Baichuan's mansion? Impossible. Xu Enyu of the house of Marquis Baichuan is a 5-wheel ultimate emperor. Isn't this young man courting death by challenging Xu Enyu? He's probably someone with the same name. Although the matter on the 99th floor was sensational enough, only the people on the adjacent floors knew exactly what had happened. The customers on the other floors basically did not know what had happened on the 99th floor. At this moment, they were all discussing the young man on the empty ground below. There were even quite a number of people who revealed mocking expressions. Xu Enyu's face darkened slightly. With a cold snort, he also jumped down and stood in front of Zhuowen. The two of them faced each other from a distance. Hey! It was really Xu Enyu from Marquis Mansion of Baichuan. Was there something wrong with this guy's brain? You actually dare to challenge an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator with 5 wheels? Are you courting death? Xu Enyu's appearance immediately caused an uproar among the people who were paying attention in the restaurant. Only now did they realize that the Xu Enyu that the young man had challenged was really Xu Enyu, the inner court elder of Marquis Baichuan's mansion. The two of them set up a death match on the empty ground. Is Zui Wang elder not going to intervene? A middle-aged man with a dignified expression snorted coldly. He stared coldly at Zhuowen and Xu Enyu below. His face was full of displeasure. He had come here to drink and drink tea, not to watch others fight to the death. Bang! As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, an extremely wretched figure fell from the sky. When the crowd looked over, they immediately discovered that this wretched figure was Zui Wang elder, the owner of the 100-year wine. What was even more shocking was that there was actually a beggar in rags standing on the back of drunkard old man. Moreover, this beggar was even posing in midair in a very hateful manner. He thought that he was very handsome, and the narcissistic expression on his face was extremely infuriating. Who was this beggar? How could he stand directly on Zui Wang Elder's back and use him as a mount? Such a scene caused everyone to roll their eyes, speechless to the extreme. After landing on the ground, Lu Hantian kicked Zui Wang Elder fiercely. Zui Wang Elder bent down with a flattering smile on his face, allowing Lu Hantian to slowly walk down to the ground with an expression of "I am a good dog." At this moment, Zui Wang Elder really did not know what to say. The beggar in front of him was too strong. Killing him was as easy as pinching an ant. He did not dare to have the slightest disobedience. Zui Wang Elder's performance made everyone's jaws drop again. Was this still the superior Zui Wang Elder? Why did he not even dare to fart in front of the beggar? Moreover, he acted like a dog. What a good dog. All right, scram to the side. This old man wants to watch the fight between these two, Lu Hantian said in a carefree manner. Ah, I will get lost, I will get lost. Zui Wang Elder still had a flattering smile on his face. Then, he lay on the ground and rolled to the side. Such a performance once again refreshed everyone's bottom line. Zhuowen was somewhat speechless as he looked at Lu Hantian's prank. This old man had probably been locked up in the Blood Devil's land of inheritance for a long time. There was something wrong with his mind. What he did was really ridiculous. Zui Wang Elder was almost broken by him. On the opposite side, Xu Enyu's face twitched and turned pale. This beggar was too strange. He must not fall into the hands of this person. Otherwise, his fate would be even worse than Zui Wang Elder's. Let's start. Don't be so wishy-washy. Boy, finish off this old man in 3 moves. He is an eyesore to me. Lu Hantian waved his hand and laughed. Finish off in 3 moves. This was too arrogant. Xu Enyu was an ultimate 5-wheel emperor. The young man in front of him was probably not as strong as Xu Enyu. How could he finish him off in 3 moves? Zhuowen nodded as if he was serious. He opened his right hand and a bone spear with cold light appeared in his hand. He pointed the tip of the spear at Xu Enyu and said indifferently, 3 moves is too much. 1 move is enough. As he spoke, Zhuowen took a step forward, and his imposing aura gushed out like the eruption of a volcano. The surrounding air flowed upwards like an inverted waterfall, and it gave rise to a myriad of strong waves. His hair fluttered in the wind, and his gaze was ghastly cold. This aura was like a vast ocean, spreading throughout the entire open space. Everyone had an illusion that the open space was no longer an open space, but a vast and boundless ocean. This was a display of a powerful aura. Ultimate 5-wheel emperor. The moment Zhuowen's aura burst out, Xu Enyu's pupils shrank to the size of needles. Shock appeared on his face. No wonder this young man in front of him dared to challenge him. It turned out that the former was a genuine ultimate 5-wheel emperor. A ultimate 5-wheel emperor? How old is this young man? He is not even 20 years old, right? He has reached the ultimate 5-wheel emperor at such a young age. Isn't that a little too terrifying? The number 1 genius of Muqin County, Lu Etao, also reached the ultimate 5-wheel emperor at the age of 21. This young man is younger than Lu Etao, but he has also reached the ultimate 5-wheel emperor. Is his talent even more terrifying than Lu Etao's? Who is this young man? He is definitely not an ordinary person with such cultivation at such a young age. When did such a monstrous genius appear in Muqin County? For a moment, the entire Century Brood restaurant was in an uproar. Many people had thought that Zhuowen was overestimating himself by challenging Xu Enyu, but when Zhuowen released the aura of an ultimate 5-wheel emperor, this thought had long been thrown out of the window. This guy, how is this possible? Not far away, Xu Mai who was covering her face, saw the figure with messy hair fluttering in the wind. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. She had never imagined that this young man, who she had never taken seriously, would have such terrifying talent and strength. He had reached the ultimate 5-wheel emperor before the age of 20. This was a monstrous genius who had surpassed Lu Etao. It was only a matter of time before such a genius reached the level of her father, Xu Chang. At this moment, Xu Mai's delicate body trembled. Her heart was filled with regret. She hated herself for looking for trouble. Such a genius was not someone she could afford to offend. Even her father, Shu Chang, would not casually offend such a genius and make a strong enemy for the house of Marquises of Baichuan. Elder Shu Enyu, you must win, Shu Maya muttered to herself in a daze. Little brother, you are indeed extremely talented. However, you and I are both at the initial stage of the ultimate five-wheel emperor realm. Aren't you a little too arrogant to think that you can defeat me in one move? Shu Enyu's face darkened as he sensed the vast aura within Zhuowen's body. He snorted coldly. Arrogant? In my opinion, it's not that I'm arrogant. It's just that you're not worthy of me using a second move. You only have one chance to attack me. If you don't grasp it, you'll die here. Zhuowen flicked the tip of the bone spear. He was as calm as water. After obtaining the inheritance of the blood demon, ordinary ultimate five-wheel emperor realm cultivators were no longer qualified to be his opponent. If Zhuowen revealed his trump card, he would not even fear a ultimate six-wheel emperor realm cultivator. Good, good. I'd like to see how you'll defeat me in one move. Shu Enyu was so angry that he laughed. He stomped his foot and a violent aura surged out. Following that, Shu Enyu's figure flashed and he actually vanished from the spot. He turned into a series of afterimages and instantly appeared above Zhuowen. Meteor cross steely. With a low shout, Shu Enyu formed a complicated seal with his hands. For a moment, the surrounding air flowed in reverse. The space collapsed and formed many black holes. Within the black holes, huge cross-shaped steles that were dozens of feet long quickly appeared. Like a storm, countless cross-shaped steles fell and crashed into Zhuowen's body. For a moment, the huge open space was filled with cross-shaped steles. The moment Shu Enyu displayed the cross-shaped steles, many people's expressions changed. The meteor cross stele was extremely famous in the Marquis of Baichuan's residence. It was an upper emperor armor technique with terrifying power. Shu Enyu, looks like you didn't grasp your only remaining chance. It's my turn now. After a moment of silence, a clear voice slowly reverberated under the countless steles. Following that, countless huge steles shattered one after another. Gravel flew everywhere. Chapter 583. Realization of death. In an instant, Zhuowen leaped into the sky. His spear moved like a furious dragon. Wherever it passed, the space collapsed and a black hole appeared. It seemed slow but was actually fast. Block it. Shu Enyu's face was extremely gloomy when he saw that the meteor cross stele could not do anything to Zhuowen. He was inexplicably shocked. The youth in front of him was indeed terrifying. The meteor cross steles were a high-level emperor-level armor technique, after all. The power of the steles was even greater. Most ultimate emperors with 5 wheels would be injured, but Zhuowen was completely unharmed. At this moment, Zhuowen's bone spear had arrived. It looked ordinary, but a trace of contempt appeared in Shu Enyu's eyes. With a shake of his sleeve, a terrifying power gushed out and formed a green tortoiseshell wall in front of him. Clang! The bone spear arrived in an instant and blasted the tortoiseshell wall. A crisp sound rang out, and then Shu Enyu was shocked to find that the tortoiseshell wall collapsed inch by inch like tofu. Whoosh! The bone spear pierced through the wall like a hot knife through butter and instantly swept toward Shu Enyu's forehead. An unfathomable spear intent burst out and the bone spear's speed suddenly soared to the extreme. It was so fast that even Shu Enyu could not see it clearly. A cold light flashed and Zhuowen passed by Shu Enyu in an instant. The bone spear was flat, and on the green tip of the spear, a trace of cherry-red blood dripped down. In the silent open space, the sound was ear-piercing and loud. This spear had a soul and was called Spear Intent. When Spear Intent burst out, it was invincible among the same level. What's going on? Who won? Within the restaurant, countless people were staring at the two figures who were facing each other with their backs facing each other on the empty ground. Just now, after the two of them had passed each other, the two of them were like stone statues, not moving at all. It was impossible to tell who had won the exchange just now. Puff! An arrow of blood shot into the sky. Shu Enyu slowly turned his head. His eyes bulged as he stared at Zhuowen's back. On his neck, a thin line of blood slowly spread. Then, blood gushed out like a flood breaking through a dam. Boom. Falling to the ground, Xu Enyu's life force gradually disappeared. His eyes were wide open. He still didn't know why Zhuowen's spear aura had soared to such a terrifying level at the last moment. Even he couldn't see it clearly. He had been completely defeated. The moment Xu Nuyang fell to the ground, it was as if a bomb had been ignited. The entire century-old brew restaurant was in an uproar. Defeated. Xu Enyu was really defeated, and he was killed in one move. At this moment, everyone's gazes converged on the young man carrying the green coffin on his back on the other side of the empty ground. Their eyes were filled with respect. This mysterious young man was too terrifying. Xu Enyu was defeated in one move just as he had said. How strong was this young man? How great was his potential? That was the only thought in everyone's mind. It's your turn. He flicked the tip of the spear with his right hand, and the remaining blood on the spear evaporated into nothingness under the force of his finger. Then, he pointed the bone spear at Xu Mai, who was not far away, whose face was filled with fear. No. Let me go. I shouldn't have offended you. I know I was wrong. I only beg you to forgive me. With a plop, Xu Mai directly knelt on the ground with a begging expression on her face. When Zhuowen killed Xu Enyu with a single move, the last hope in her heart was completely destroyed. At this moment, her heart was filled with regret and hatred. She hated herself for being so brainless. She had offended this demon for no reason. Forgive you. If I wasn't strong enough today, would you have let me go? I'm afraid not. Since you want to kill me, you should be prepared to be killed at any time. There is no absolute hunter and prey in this world. Sometimes, the hunter and the prey can be exchanged at any time. Therefore, to live in this world, everyone must be prepared to die. After saying that, Zhuowen moved. With a stomp of his foot, his whole body turned into several residual shadows. In an instant, he passed by Xu Mai. The bone spear swept across her neck mercilessly. Blood splattered. Xu Mai's expression froze, and then she slowly fell to the ground. The restaurant was silent. Zhuowen's decisive and ruthless means had completely stunned everyone. Many people were full of fear. They swore that they would never offend such a demon like Xu Mai. Otherwise, the consequences would not be any better than Xu Enyu and Xu Mai. Xu Enyu and Xu Mai are dead. This time, the house of Marquis Baichuan has suffered a great loss. I wonder how Xu Chang will feel when he knows about this. Many people were even gloating. Xu Enyu and Xu Mai had a high status in the house of Marquis Baichuan. Now that both of them were dead, Xu Chang would probably be furious. Brother Zhuo? You are Brother Zhuo? After dealing with Xu Mai and Xu Enyu, Zhuowen was about to enter the Century Brewed restaurant with Lu Hantian. Suddenly, a voice of surprise rang out from the crowd. Immediately, a beautiful girl in red rushed towards Zhuowen. Looking at the excited girl in red, Zhuowen's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He could not help but say, "Miss Honglian, you are also here." The red-clothed girl in front of him was a disciple of the Jade Lady Astral Court. She was also the junior sister who had the best relationship with Clear Lotus. Zhuowen had once saved her in the dark forest on the second floor of the Vitality Tower. Speaking of which, Zhuowen had to kill Xu Liang, the second son of the house of Marquis Baichuan, to save this girl and Qinglian. Thus, he had a blood feud with the house of Marquis Baichuan. You are not dead. And you came out of the Vitality Tower? Did you get the inheritance of the Blood Devil? You know, senior sister Qinglian has been depressed for a long time because of you. As soon as Honglian came, she threw out a lot of questions, which gave Zhuowen a lot of headaches. Yo. Boy, you have good luck with women. This girl is a few years younger than you. You actually killed her. Tut tut, you really have the demeanor of your big brother when I was young. Haha. At this time, Lu Hantian came over with a dirty face. His face was full of lewd ridicule. His eyes kept moving between Zhuowen and Honglian with an expression that said, "I knew it," which made Zhuowen want to beat him up. After all, Honglian was an inexperienced girl. After being teased by Lu Hantian, her original liveliness disappeared. She lowered her head, and a trace of blush appeared on her cheeks. She stammered, "Senior, you misunderstood. In fact, Brother Zhuo and I are ordinary friends." Yes, I know. Lu Hantian still nodded with a smirk on his face. His expression said, "You are lying." Zhuowen couldn't stand it anymore and quickly said, "It is not convenient to talk here. How about we go inside the Centennial Wine House?" The reason Zhuowen said this was because he saw a trace of hesitation in Honglian's eyes. It was obvious that Honglian was still hiding something from him. Lu Hantian suddenly shouted, "You Zui Wang old man, hurry up and lead us to the 100th floor of the Centennial Wine House. Bring me the best wine and dishes." Not far away, Zui Wang old man, who was pretending to be dead, quickly rolled over to Lu Hantian's feet. He stood up and said with a flattering smile, "This little one will lead the way. 3 sirs, please follow me." Zui Wang old man had a submissive appearance. He then eagerly led the 3 of them into the Centennial Wine House. "Brother Zhuo, that really is the Centennial Wine House's owner, Zui Wang old man." Zui Wang old man's performance really shocked Honglian. Zui Wang old man was known as the #1 person below the 5 magnates. He was a high and mighty figure. However, such a person didn't show any temper in front of Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. Instead, he acted like a servant and fawned over them. "Yes, let's go. Let's talk inside the Centennial Wine House." With that, the 4 of them quickly ascended to the top floor of the Centennial Wine House, leaving the rest of the people in the restaurant staring at each other. The scene just now was too shocking. Everyone began to guess the origins of the youth with the green coffin and the beggar. Zhuowen, Honglian, and Lu Hantian sat in a luxurious room. Zhuowen looked at Honglian and said, "What happened to Qinglian? Did she obtain one of the ancient inheritances?" Senior sister Qinglian successfully obtained the Windsword sect's inheritance. She's now at the peak of the 4th wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. Her strength is probably comparable to an early-stage 5th wheel Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. However, because of what happened to Brother Zhuo, senior sister Qinglian was greatly affected. She's now in closed-door cultivation. She's only willing to come out after the War of the 9 Counties begins, Honglian said helplessly. Zhuowen nodded slightly when he heard that. However, he was slightly surprised. Qinglian's cultivation had been at the bottom of the pile, only at the mid-2nd wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. After obtaining the Windsword sect's inheritance, she'd actually reached the peak of the 4th wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. It seemed that Qinglian had obtained a great fortuitous encounter in the Windsword sect. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to advance so quickly. Zhuowen was naturally happy for his friend. "Miss Honglian, I saw your eyes flicker and your brows knit together. Is there something else?" Zhuowen suddenly asked. After seeing Red Lotus for the first time, he keenly noticed that apart from being excited and happy to see him, there was also a trace of hesitation. This trace of hesitation gave Zhuowen a bad premonition. Honglian's eyes flickered. She sighed softly, "I originally didn't want to talk to you about this, but the senior beside you is unfathomable. Perhaps you really can resolve that calamity this time." "What calamity?" Zhuowen hurriedly asked. The bad feeling in his heart grew even stronger. Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City have been destroyed. After a moment of hesitation, Honglian clenched her teeth and told Zhuowen the news that shocked him. Rumble. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed to the size of needles. He suddenly clenched his right hand, causing the wine cup in his hand to shatter inch by inch. Due to his excitement, his uncontrollable aura surged out, causing the entire table to shatter. "What? What did you say? Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City have been destroyed. How is that possible?" Chapter 584. Bronze Paper Kite. The surging killing intent spread throughout the restaurant like a tidal wave. The surrounding tables crumbled under the killing intent and turned into wood shavings. Lu Hantian's playful smile vanished. This was the first time he had seen the usually indifferent Zhuowen reveal such a strong killing intent. Perhaps the Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City that Red Lotus had mentioned were extremely important to Zhuowen. I'm sorry. I was too agitated just now. Miss Red Lotus, can you tell me in detail what happened? Zhuowen gradually calmed down and looked straight at Red Lotus as he spoke. Lu Hantian couldn't help but nod when he saw that Zhuowen was able to regain his composure in such a short period of time. Whether it was Zhuowen's temperament or character, Lu Hantian was extremely satisfied. He knew that if this kid continued to develop, his future would be limitless. Red Lotus stole a glance at Lu Hantian beside Zhuowen, and a trace of hesitation appeared on her pretty face. Don't worry, Big Brother Hantian is one of us, so there's no need to be so formal. Zhuowen waved his hand and smiled. Seeing this, Red Lotus's worries were also dispelled. She then began to narrate the events of the past 2 months in detail. As Red Lotus narrated, Zhuowen's face became increasingly gloomy. His fists were clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard from them. It turned out that after the conclusion of the Vitality Tower battle, everyone believed that Zhuowen had already fallen in the Blood Devil inheritance. Therefore, they didn't wait for Zhuowen to appear and left one after another. Lu Nantian took away the top 100 geniuses of the Vitality Tower battle and began to focus on nurturing them so that they would be able to perform well in the upcoming battle of the 9 counties. As for Jiu Tian, Jiu Xin, and Hu Wuying, since Zhuowen's whereabouts were unknown, many of the leaders of the forces who had been enthusiastic about Jiu Tian had become much colder and no longer paid any attention to Jiu Tian and the others. However, the Marquis of Baichuan's estate was overbearing. They actually intercepted Jiu Tian's group of 3 near the Origin Qi Tower, wanting to detain them and take them away. Fortunately, Qiu Chou and the others from Broken Rock City helped. Moreover, Luo Xing and Qing Lian both made a move, so the Marquis of Baichuan's estate did not succeed. After Jiu Tian's group of 3 returned, they arranged for the important figures of Rattan Armor City to move to Broken Rock City. However, this was all part of the Marquis of Baichuan's estate's plot. Xu Tianliang purposely let Jiu Tian bring people to Broken Rock City so that they could capture all the important figures of the 2 cities in one fell swoop. Although Muqin County had a rule that super forces could not attack other forces, the rule was dead after all. The Marquis of Baichuan's estate did not attack Broken Rock City, but Xu Tianliang took advantage of the loophole in the rule and secretly contacted several supercities that were not on good terms with Broken Rock City. This was a premeditated war. A total of 5 supercities were instigated by Xu Tianliang. Then, 5 elite divisions, a total of 1 million mighty soldiers, attacked Broken Rock City under Xu Tianliang's plan. 3 days and 3 nights. Broken Rock City only lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Then, 1 million mighty cavalry broke through the city, trampled the city walls, and wantonly slaughtered in Broken Rock City. In one night, Broken Rock City was massacred. Whether it was warriors or civilians, they were all turned into corpses. The huge Broken Rock City was turned into a graveyard. For a moment, the entire Muqin County was shaken. Broken Rock City was considered one of the top supercities in Muqin County, but it was actually massacred. This news almost spread throughout Muqin County. However, Marquis Muqin, Lu Nantian, didn't show up. Although super forces couldn't attack other forces, forces of the same level could attack and conquer cities. Whether it was massacring or being destroyed, Lu Nantian wouldn't show up because it was allowed. Although many people knew that the House of Marquis Baichuan was in charge, they were one of the super forces after all. No one dared to provoke such a powerful force. Even the House of Marquis Qin could only turn a blind eye. If it was under normal circumstances, Lu Nantian might have stood up. However, with the arrival of the War of the 9 Counties, Lu Nantian's attention was basically focused on cultivating the 100 geniuses. He basically did not have much time to deal with such matters. This was the loophole that the House of Marquis Baichuan took advantage of. Broken Rock City was destroyed. What about Senior Qiu Chou and the people of Rattan Armor City? Zhuowen asked in a low voice. Senior Qiu Chou is the strongest. After the city fell, he broke through the heavy siege and escaped. However, Ouyang Yuntu and the other important figures of Broken Rock City, as well as the people of Rattan Armor City, were basically captured alive. They are now imprisoned in a newly built prison in the ruins of Broken Rock City. Originally, Shu Tianliang wanted to order people to kill all the captives. However, the master of the meteorite of Jade Lady Galaxy asked for the captives, so Shu Tianliang did not succeed. Now, Jade Lady Galaxy is negotiating with the house of Marquis Baichuan, hoping to release the captives. Speaking of this, Hong Lian suddenly glanced at Zhuowen and carefully said, "The Zhuo family is also imprisoned in the prison. It is said that because of you, Shu Tianliang specially ordered people to take care of the Zhuo family. It is said that many of the Zhuo family members were tortured to death." Creak. Zhuowen clenched his fists. His heart was filled with anger, especially when he heard that many of the Zhuo family members were tortured to death. The anger in Zhuowen's heart erupted like a volcano, almost uncontrollable. "What about my grandfather, uncle, and the others?" Zhuowen let out a light sigh and asked. "I don't know." However, those who were tortured to death were basically the members of the Zhuo family with low cultivation. "Your grandfather's cultivation is not low, so he should be fine," Hong Lian said softly. Zhuowen sneered. Although Hong Lian said that it was fine, Shu Tianliang's hatred for him would probably vent a lot of his anger on his grandfather, uncle, and other relatives who were close to him. "Go back and say hello to the master of the meteorite for me. Thank you for interceding for my family and friends. I, Zhuowen, owe Jade Lady Galaxy a favor." Zhuowen knew that if it were not for the master of the meteorite, all the captives in Broken Rock City and Rattan Armor City would have been killed, instead of just being imprisoned. As he spoke, Zhuowen slowly stood up. His gaze became extremely fierce. "Shu Tianliang, you are indeed ruthless. You actually dared to attack my, Zhuowen's, friends and relatives. This time, I will absolutely not let you go." Shu Tianliang was a scourge to him. If he did not get rid of him, the lives of his family and friends would not be guaranteed. "Zhuowen, you better not be rash. Broken Rock City is now heavily guarded. Moreover, it is said that there are several Ultimate Emperor realm martial artists guarding it. It is impossible for you to save them alone." Seeing Zhuowen stand up, Hong Lian hurriedly pulled Zhuowen back. Her face was full of worry. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "If someone gives me a drop of water, I will give them back an ocean. In the prison of Broken Rock City, there are my family and friends. They have all helped and supported me. Although I, Zhuowen, am not a person who is afraid of death. There are things that a man should do and things that he should not do. If I were to ignore my family and friends being imprisoned, would I still be a human? I must go to Broken Rock City." Zhuowen shook his right hand and shook off Hong Lian's hand. He slowly walked out of the restaurant. However, just as he was about to step out of the door, a figure blocked his path. "Big brother Han Tian, don't tell me that you also want to advise me not to be rash," Zhuowen said in a low voice as he stared at the sloppy man in front of him. At this moment, Lu Hantian looked at the stubborn youth in front of him with a complicated gaze. However, he shook his head and said, "The distance between the provincial capital and Broken Rock City is not small. With your speed, you will need at least half a month to reach there. I'm afraid that you won't be able to wait that long." At this point, Lu Hantian waved his sleeve and a small bronze bird the size of a palm quietly laid in his palm. He continued, "This is a bronze kite, an Earth-rank top-level spirit treasure. If you use this spirit treasure, you will be able to reach Broken Rock City in 3 days. Also, this is a teleportation talisman. If you encounter any danger that you cannot withstand, crush this talisman and I will be able to arrive at your side in an instant to help you solve your problems." Hearing this, Zhuowen could not help but be startled. A trace of warmth emerged in his heart. Lu Hantian had indeed treated him as a brother and had done a lot for him. "Thank you, big brother." Zhuowen respectfully cupped his hands and said, Go. Also, make good use of the power of the demon-suppressing green coffin. The power of the blood demon inside will be of great help to you in battle. Inside this coffin are some methods to use the power of the blood demon that I have summarized over the past 100 years. It is the experience that I have accumulated from battling the blood demon. If you study it well, it might be able to help you. Nodding his head, Lu Hantian's right hand tapped on Zhuowen's forehead. Instantly, a stream of information flowed from Lu Hantian's fingertip into Zhuowen's mind. Feeling the information surging in his mind, Zhuowen's eyes could not help but reveal a trace of brilliance. What Lu Hantian had imparted to him was the secret of how to use the power of the blood demon with ease. After grasping these secrets, Zhuowen would be able to better display the power of the blood demon within the demon-suppressing green coffin. This would undoubtedly allow Zhuowen's strength to rise to another level, increasing his chances of going to Broken Rock City by a lot. Go. You just have to pay more attention on this trip. After transmitting the information, Lu Hantian waved his right hand. The bronze paper kite in his palm suddenly expanded inch by inch, turning into a giant green bird that was several feet tall. Its wingspan was 20 meters, and a sharp bird cry shook the heavens and the earth. Then I'll take my leave first. Nodding his head, Zhuowen stomped his foot and leaped onto the back of the green bird. The green bird let out a long cry, spread its wings, and soared into the sky. In an instant, it turned into a green shadow and swept towards the horizon. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from Lu Hantian's sight. Senior, why do you want Big Brother Zhuo to go to Broken Rock City? This is simply sending him to his death. Hong Lian came to Lu Hantian's side. Her beautiful eyes widened as she stomped her foot and said unhappily, "Do you think it's useful for me to stop him? Zhuowen's temper is even more stubborn than I was back then. Since he insists on going to save people, can you change his mind with just a few words?" Lu Hantian shook his head. Hearing this, Hong Lian went completely silent. Lu Hantian was right. Zhuowen's temper was extremely stubborn. No matter how she tried to persuade him, it was useless. Moreover, you underestimate Zhuowen too much. This child's strength is not what it looks like on the surface. This is because he is the only monstrous genius that has obtained the inheritance of the blood demon. Chapter 585. Broken Rock City ruins. In Baichuan Marquis Mansion, Xu Chang's face was livid. He looked at the two cold corpses in the hall, his eyes filled with killing intent. One of the corpses was a blue-robed elder, and the other was a red-clothed girl. They were Xu Enyu and Xu Mai who had died in the open space of the 100-Year Brew restaurant. In front of the two corpses, two servants stood on one side, trembling with fear. They dared not make a sound and were very respectful. You said that Xu Enyu and Mai were killed by a young man with a green coffin? Do you know the origin of that young man? At this moment, Xu Chang frowned slightly. The young man was too terrifying to be able to kill Xu Enyu in one move. Frankly speaking, the young man was probably a monstrous genius comparable to LV Tao. What surprised Xu Chang more was that the mysterious young man was less than 20 years old. Didn't that mean that the mysterious young man's talent was more terrifying than LV Tao's? This discovery made Xu Chang feel a little uneasy. When did such a terrifying young talent appear in Muqin County? Moreover, it was said that the beggar behind the mysterious young man was even more terrifying. Zui Wang didn't even dare to fart in front of the beggar, who was suspected to be an expert in the Fourth Venerable Realm. If there was really an expert in the Fourth Venerable Realm behind the mysterious young man, Xu Chang would really have a headache. Such an expert was not easy to deal with. Even Baichuan Marquis Mansion didn't want to provoke such an expert. "Marquis, what should we do now?" In the hall, the two servants were on tenterhooks. "Humph. Make a good funeral for Mai and Xu Enyu. In addition, let the experts of the intelligence department investigate the mysterious young man and the beggar. I want to know the origin of these two people." Waving his hand, Xu Chang said cautiously. After all, Xu Chang didn't dare to act rashly, especially when he heard that the beggar was suspected to be an expert in the Fourth Venerable Realm. The two servants left. Xu Chang fell into deep thought and murmured, "The beggar who is suspected to be in the Fourth Venerable Realm and the young man in the green coffin with terrifying talent. Who are these two people?" Thousands of miles up in the sky, a green shadow flashed past. It was a huge green bird with a wingspan of dozens of feet. Its speed was as fast as lightning as it flashed through the void. On the back of the blue bird, There was a cold figure quietly sitting cross-legged. It was a young man around the age of 19. He carried a green coffin on his back and had shoulder-length black hair. It was Zhuowen, who was rushing towards Broken Rock City. There are still 3 days left. During this time, I can consolidate my cultivation and practice the blood demon secret technique that Big Brother Han Tian passed down to me. As he muttered to himself, Zhuowen lightly patted the devil suppression green coffin on his back with both hands, and an unfamiliar hand seal slowly struck out from between his hands. With a creak, the lid of the devil suppression green coffin actually slowly opened up by a sliver. Boom! A monstrous wave of pressure gushed out from the demon-suppressing green coffin. The surrounding air rotated to form countless cyclones, and space seemed to be faintly collapsing. At the same time, Zhuowen formed another hand seal. The originally surging pressure slowly dissipated, and a trace of joy appeared on Zhuowen's face. The blood demon was an ancient sacred level creature. If nothing unexpected happened, the ancient blood demon would have been able to reach the sacred level. However, this blood demon was too unlucky. It had actually wantonly slaughtered in the Origin Chi Tower and angered everyone. As a result, before it could transform into a sacred level creature, it was annihilated by the Rika Patriarch with a single move. Its vitality was greatly damaged. Even so, this ancient blood demon was still in existence at the peak of the Emperor realm. Its peak strength was probably even more terrifying than the Azure Emperor of the Azure Mystic Empire. The pressure that flowed out from it was enough to suppress most ultimate Emperor realm cultivators. The secret technique that Lu Hantian had passed on to him was to open a sliver of the demon-suppressing green coffin and use the secret technique to control the pressure that flowed out, thus suppressing the enemy. When facing an enemy, the enemy would only be able to use a portion of their strength under the pressure of the blood demon's pressure, while Zhuowen would be able to use his peak strength. This way, Zhuowen would undoubtedly be able to defeat someone stronger than him. Moreover, the more the coffin lid was opened, the more terrifying the pressure would be. If the entire demon-suppressing green coffin was opened, the pressure that would erupt would probably affect even 4 exalted realm cultivators. However, the consequence of that was that the blood demon's soul would probably be able to escape the restraints of the demon-suppressing green coffin. When Lu Hantian had passed on this secret technique, he had warned Zhuowen that the demon-suppressing green coffin could only be opened by a third. Otherwise, with Zhuowen's current strength, he wouldn't be able to suppress the blood demon at all. The blood demon would probably find an opportunity to escape. However, once Zhuowen reached the 4 exalted realm and his strength reached the Empyrean realm like Lu Hantian, he would be able to completely control the blood demon's power. At that time, Zhuowen's strength would receive an extremely terrifying increase. Although he might not be a match for an Emperor Realm cultivator, it was possible for him to escape from an Emperor Realm cultivator with his life. 3 days passed very quickly. Within these 3 days, Zhuowen not only grasped the basics of the blood demon's secret technique, but he also used the 2 newly obtained earth fires to fuse the 6-colored refining flame. Its power was extremely powerful and was probably comparable to a 6-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Back then, Zhuowen was also taken aback when he fused the 6-colored refining flames. Its might was truly terrifying. With the 6-colored refining flames by his side, Zhuowen was much more confident in his trip to Broken Rock City. In a dense forest 1,000 miles away from Broken Rock City, a green shadow flashed by and a huge green bird slowly descended. Zhuowen jumped down and waved his right hand. The green bird shrank to the size of a palm and was kept in his spirit ring. Looking at Broken Rock City 1,000 miles away, Zhuowen's expression became gloomy. The once prosperous and grand Broken Rock City was no longer there. At this moment, 1,000 miles away from the city was a ruin. Countless broken walls stood in great numbers and smoke filled the air. It was completely filled with a decadent and abandoned aura. Creak. Looking at the Broken Rock City that was no longer what it used to be, Zhuowen's eyes turned slightly red. He clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. He never thought that the once prosperous and huge city would become like this. His heart was already filled with coldness and hatred. Marquis House of Baichuan, Shu Tianliang, I, Zhuowen, will slowly settle this score with you. Zhuowen muttered coldly to himself as he carefully walked towards the ruins in front of him. In the middle of the ruins, there was a square black iron wall. That iron wall should be the prison that Hong Lian mentioned. Around the prison, there were groups of armored soldiers with spears in their hands patrolling back and forth. Moreover, there was vigilance and viciousness between their brows. Looking at the vigilant expressions of the soldiers, Zhuowen was somewhat puzzled. Could it be that these soldiers knew that he, Zhuowen, had returned to save people, so they were also heavily guarded? However, this thought was quickly overturned by Zhuowen. Now, the entire Muqin County probably already believed that he, Zhuowen, had died in the Blood Demon Legacy Land. It was unlikely that they would guess that he would come to save the captives in Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City. Could it be that someone else has come to save the captives? Moreover, these soldiers should have suffered a few losses already. Speaking up to this point, Zhuowen suddenly thought of a person, and that was Qiu Qiu. Hong Lian had said that when Broken Rock City was destroyed, only Qiu Qiu had managed to escape. Most likely, other than Zhuowen, Qiu Qiu was the only one who wanted to rescue the captives. Originally, when Hong Lian said that Qiu Qiu had broken out of the encirclement and escaped alone, Zhuowen actually held some grudges in his heart. However, the current situation was probably different from what he had imagined. Qiu Qiu was probably not escaping, but conserving his strength to save the others. There were several tens of thousands of soldiers patrolling outside the prison. Every single one of them was an elite. The weakest was at the Human King realm, while the strongest was at the peak of the Heavenly King realm. Although these soldiers weren't strong individually, when tens of thousands of them worked together, even an Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator would find it difficult to break through. Zhuowen had also observed that the soldiers had surrounded them so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. It wouldn't be that easy to break through. Looks like I can only force my way through. Zhuowen took in a deep breath. He knew that the outside of the prison was heavily guarded. There was no other way except to force his way through. Silently circulating the world force within him, Zhuowen slowly adjusted his presence. Once his presence had reached its peak, it would be time for him to force his way through. Boom! Suddenly, a world-shaking tremor arose from the ruins in front of them. Zhuowen, who had been accumulating power and waiting, was also stunned by this unforeseen event. Let's go. Qiu Qiu is here again. This time, we must capture him alive. This will be a great merit. Don't worry. The 5 city lords have set up an inescapable net this time. If Qiu Qiu dares to come, he will definitely be captured alive. Damn it. It's best to capture Qiu Qiu alive. During this period of time, this fellow has been popping out like a cockroach every day. He has killed many of our brothers. This time, he must not return alive. Immediately, the several tens of thousands of soldiers outside the prison began to move. They all gathered towards the east, and the faint voices allowed Zhuowen to understand the situation. It really is Senior Qiu. Narrowing his eyes, Zhuowen slowly dispersed the presence within his body. Instead, he withdrew his presence and silently followed behind a group of soldiers. With Zhuowen's current strength, it was a piece of cake for him to conceal his presence without being discovered. Dozens of miles to the east, there was a rather wide open space. At this moment, several tens of thousands of soldiers were gathered in this open space like a black mass of ants. In the center of the open space, a middle-aged man with a fierce expression and a disheveled figure was surrounded by the soldiers. This middle-aged man was Qiu Qiu. Zhuowen also noticed that Qiu Qiu looked dispirited and the presence within his body was extremely weak. Originally, he was at the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm, but now, his strength had dropped to the intermediate Ultimate Emperor realm. He had most likely suffered severe internal injuries that had reduced his strength. Haha. Qiu Qiu, the former dazzling genius of Broken Rock City and the strongest expert, how did he end up in such a sorry state today? Hehe, Broken Rock City has been destroyed. You must be very sad. A slightly ear-piercing voice resounded in the empty space. A middle-aged man in luxurious clothes was floating in the air, looking down at the miserable Qiu Qiu below with a mocking smile on his face. Lin Yao. If it weren't for the secret support of the Marquis of Baichuan, even if the 5 supercities joined forces, you would not be a match for Broken Rock City. In my eyes, you are just a bunch of trash. Chapter 586. Black Prison. The finely dressed man floating in the air was called Lin Yaro. He was the city lord of a super city called Black Iron City, which was adjacent to Broken Rock City. His strength was around the mid-ultimate emperor stage and was no match for Cho Cho at his peak. At this moment, there were 4 other men with powerful auras gathered behind Lin Yaro. They were all middle-aged and were basically at the early ultimate emperor stage. Perhaps it was because Lin Yaro was the strongest, so these 4 people basically followed his lead. These 4 people were naturally the city lords of the other 4 supercities. Their city's forces were also ranked low, so it was natural for them to follow Lin Yaro's lead. Hee. You're right. With the alliance of our 5 supercities, it's indeed unlikely that we can break through Broken Rock City. What a pity. You offended the Marquis of Baichuan because of Zhuoan. I have to say that you're really stupid. Lin Yaro crossed his arms and looked down at Cho Cho with disdain. In his opinion, offending the Marquis of Baichuan was an extremely stupid act. Humph. You're just a bunch of pitiful dogs that have been used by Xu Tianliang. What right do you have to laugh at me, Cho Cho? Why didn't the 5 of you join forces to attack my Broken Rock City back then? Now, under Xu Tianliang's instigation, you're like a bunch of dogs. How disgusting. Cho Cho stood in the middle of the open space, his eyes full of disdain and contempt. Back then, when Broken Rock City was at its peak, the 5 of them came to give gifts every day with an extremely respectful attitude. Now that they had the support of the Marquis of Baichuan, they turned the tables. You're still so stubborn even when death is at hand? Lin Yaro's face darkened when he heard Cho Cho's mocking words. Go. Don't kill this guy. Just capture him alive. I want to personally torture this Cho Cho to death. Lin Yaro sneered. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Instantly, tens of thousands of soldiers charged fearlessly at Cho Cho under Lin Yaro's command. At this moment, Cho Cho's face was extremely solemn. A powerful aura surged out as he shouted, thunderous battle chi. Boom boom boom. Boundless gang chi accompanied by terrifying lightning surged out around Cho Cho, circling around his body, making him look dazzling and unstoppable. Astral Thunder Battle Chi was an extremely famous superior Emperor tier armor skill. It was Cho Cho's strongest trump card. Cho Cho had used his strongest trump card from the very beginning. Clearly, Cho Cho intended to go all out. Bang bang bang. After coming in contact with Cho Cho's thunderous battle chi, the 100 soldiers in the front twitched and turned into charcoal. They couldn't be more dead. Thunder Astral Battle Chi? This Cho Cho is going all out from the start. Looks like we still need the 5 of us to attack together. Looking at the many soldiers below who were unable to do anything to Cho Cho, who was in the midst of the Astral Thunder Battle Chi, Lin Yaro and the other 4 city lords frowned slightly. They also felt that Cho Cho was a thorny problem at this moment. As soon as Lin Yaro said that, the other 4 city lords nodded. Immediately, the 5 of them burst out with powerful auras and released their most powerful moves. Heavenly Court Explosive Fist. Phantom Fist Aura. 8 Extremes Crushing Palm. 6 Suns Soft Palm. Earth-shattering Stone. 5 solemn voices rang out in the area. Then, 5 different colored lights shot up into the sky. 5 terrifying attacks fell on Cho Cho like raindrops, as if they were going to destroy the earth. Cho Cho's expression grew solemn. These 5 attacks were the combined attacks of 5 ultimate third wheel emperors. If he had been at his peak, perhaps he wouldn't have cared too much. However, due to his severe internal injuries, his strength was only on par with Lin Yaro's. I can only go all out. Cho Cho gritted his teeth and stomped his feet. The Astral Thunder Battle Chi on the surface of his body exploded to the extreme. It was as terrifying as it materialized and wrapped around his body in layers. Boom. The 5 terrifying attacks landed on Cho Cho's body in an instant. For a moment, terrifying lightning and 5 colored light surged through the entire area. Thump thump thump. Cho groaned and retreated more than 10 steps. The astral thunder battle chi on the surface showed signs of shattering. This discovery made Cho's expression extremely gloomy. Cho, you can't block it. Break it for us. Haha. Lin Yaro was overjoyed when he saw Cho retreating. He hurriedly activated the power in his body. For a moment, the 5-colored attack was several times more dazzling. It actually crushed Cho's astral thunder battle chi. Poochie. Cho spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated a few hundred steps. The astral thunder battle chi on the surface of his body was annihilated. Cho's face was extremely pale. He clutched his chest and coughed continuously. He knelt on one knee on the ground. Haha. Cho, looks like you have a day like this. Capture this guy alive. Cho is already injured. I'm afraid he won't be able to use any of his strength anymore. Lin Yaro laughed wantonly. Looking at the genius that he could only look up to in the past being defeated in his hands today, Lin Yaro felt a perverted pleasure in his heart. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. When the surrounding soldiers received the order, they all gathered together and walked towards Zhuowen. When the surrounding soldiers were within 5 meters of Cho, a cold light shot out from afar. With a flash of the cold light, the surrounding soldiers all had blood spurting out from their necks as they fell to the ground. As the cold light faded away, everyone discovered that there was a 10-foot-long bone spear quietly inserted into the ground beside Cho. It was naturally this bone spear that had killed so many soldiers just now. Who is it? Lin Yaro's pupils shrank as he shouted in a low voice. Cho, who was kneeling on one knee on the ground, also noticed the bone spear beside him. He was startled at first, but soon his face revealed a look of pleasant surprise. He was too familiar with this bone spear. It's him. He didn't die. Haha, he didn't die. The moment he saw the bone spear, Cho laughed. He laughed without restraint. His laughter was filled with joy and relaxation. Cho's laughter also caused Lin Yaro and the others to frown. They faintly discovered that the bone spear beside Cho gave them a familiar feeling. Why does this bone spear look so much like Zhuowen's tyrannical dragon-scale bone spear? Could it be that the one who threw the bone spear was Zhuowen? A city lord behind Lin Yaro suddenly exclaimed. As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar in the surroundings. Lin Yaro's face twitched as he coldly said, "Don't talk nonsense. Zhuowen chose the blood demon inheritance. Back then, Lu Hantian fell because of the blood demon inheritance. How could this Zhuowen come out alive?" Although he said this, Lin Yaro's expression had become extremely fearful. He had seen Zhuowen's terrifying performance back then. One must know that even super geniuses like Xu Tianliang and Zhu Kai were defeated by this boy. His strength was truly terrifying. That's right. That Zhuowen should have fallen. This person is unlikely to be that Zhuowen. The 4 city lords behind Lin Yaro agreed. Thinking of the arrogant and terrifying figure in the Vitality Tower, a trace of fear emerged in their hearts. That young man was unbelievably strong. Whether it was strength or potential, they had never seen anyone like him in their lives. Some people even predicted that as long as Zhuowen was given a certain amount of time, he would definitely surpass LV Yitao. Oh, it seems that you all thought that I had fallen. But now, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. A clear and melodious voice was slowly transmitted from the distance. Upon hearing this voice, the expressions of Lin Yaro and the rest immediately froze. Their gazes shifted, only to see a young man with shoulder-length black hair and a huge green coffin on his back slowly walking over from the distant horizon. Every step he took was able to create a terrifying air wave. The hissing sound that was produced caused quite a number of people present to tense up. Zhuowen. It's really Zhuowen. Haha, I knew you wouldn't die so easily. Your life is harder than a cockroach. Cho, who was kneeling on one knee, could not help but laugh towards the sky. His face was full of joy. The faces of Lin Yaro and the other 4 city lords were extremely ugly. They did not expect that Zhuowen would actually appear in front of them. Didn't that mean that Zhuowen had obtained the blood demon inheritance? The blood demon inheritance, which was known as the most terrifying and powerful blood demon inheritance in the Vitality Tower, had really been obtained by Zhuowen? This was too inconceivable. Whoosh! Stepping lightly in the air, Zhuowen instantly arrived at the center of the empty space. With a kick of his right foot, he gently picked up the bone spear stuck in the ground. He raised his head slightly and stared coldly at Lin Yarrow and the other 4 city lords in the sky. "Senior Qiu, are you all right?" Zhuowen asked Qiu worriedly as he stood with his spear in hand. "Haha, I'm fine. Kid, you're indeed extraordinary. Even the blood demon inheritance could not kill you. It seems that we've all underestimated you." Qiu laughed heartily and said heartlessly, "But you have to be careful. These tens of thousands of elites, in addition to Lin Yarrow and the other 4 city lords, will not be easy to deal with." Qiu's expression was solemn as he said this. However, Zhuowen smiled, and a carefree expression appeared on his face. Actually, Zhuowen didn't care about these people at all. With his current strength, dealing with Lin Yarrow and the others would be a piece of cake. What he was afraid of were the few ultimate 5-wheel Emperor realm cultivators guarding the prison. According to Hong Lian, those city lords were powerful inner sect elders of the Marquis of Baichuan's residence. Therefore, Zhuowen had to be cautious. "Don't worry, this bunch of useless chickens and pottery dogs are nothing in my eyes." Zhuowen smiled warmly. However, the words that came out of his mouth caused the faces of Lin Yarrow and the other 4 to twitch as their expressions turned ugly. Wasn't Zhuowen a little too arrogant? Although Zhuowen was indeed very powerful, it was extremely arrogant of him to not take the 5 of them and the tens of thousands of elite soldiers seriously. "Zhuowen, aren't you a little too arrogant? So what if you're strong? You're just one person, while we have tens of thousands of people. You're the one who's going to die today." Lin Yarrow snorted coldly. "Is that so? Then, let's try." Shaking his head, Zhuowen moved. A shadow flashed past, and before anyone could see what was going on, the 5 city lords, including Lin Yarrow, stopped at the same time. Chapter 587. Law Enforcement Elder and Shu Nu Pucci. 5 large heads flew up and blood spurted out. Lin Yarrow and the other warriors fell one after another, turning into 5 cold corpses. The 5 city lords were killed in seconds. How did this guy do it? The surrounding soldiers' faces became deathly pale. In the blink of an eye, the 5 high and mighty city lords had turned into 5 corpses and collapsed in front of them. This completely shocked the soldiers. Moreover, they didn't even see how Zhuowen attacked. It was just a flash, and the 5 city lords had all turned into cold corpses. An aura of panic spread among all the soldiers. "Everyone, don't be afraid. This Zhuowen is only one person and we have tens of thousands of elite soldiers. The city lords were killed and we must avenge them. Kill this guy." A general who looked like a general suddenly stood in front of the soldiers and shouted with a long spear in his hand. Although the 5 city lords were killed in seconds and this general was terrified, he had tens of thousands of elite soldiers around him. With such a large number of soldiers, he did not believe that they could not deal with Zhuowen. "Pucci." A cold light flashed and the general who was encouraging the soldiers froze. Blood spurted out and his head was separated from his body. With the death of the general, the surrounding atmosphere of fear became even more intense. All the soldiers stared at the general who was killed in seconds and they all retreated. No one dared to go forward. The young man who was carrying the green coffin was too terrifying. Whether it was their general or the 5 city lords, they could not withstand a single blow from him. What kind of strength did he need to achieve this? Qiu's eyes burst out with a blazing light as he stared at Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen's strength shocked even him. It seemed that Zhuowen might have successfully obtained the blood demon inheritance in the land of inheritance. Who else dares to go forward? Or do you all want to go together? Zhuowen's bone spear was stained with blood as he looked at the soldiers around him. His clear voice rumbled in the open space like thunder. No one answered, and no one refuted. The tens of thousands of soldiers fell silent, and some of them didn't even dare to look Zhuowen in the eye. They were originally following orders. Now that the 5 city lords and generals had been instantly killed by Zhuowen, They had already fallen into a state of being without a leader. In addition to the powerful strength that Zhuowen had displayed, no one was willing to risk their lives. Who dares to behave atrociously here? While the tens of thousands of soldiers were stunned by Zhuowen, a deafening roar came from the prison in the middle of the ruins. Two whooshing sounds could be heard, and two figures stepped out from the prison, their auras surging. One of the two figures was an old man in a black robe, and the other was a young man in his 20s. At this moment, the young man was following behind the old man in the black robe with a flattering smile on his face. These two people were the law enforcement elder and the shadowy man, Xu Enyu, who had wanted to take away Jiu Yu Tian and the other two people outside the Vitality Tower. Swoosh swoosh. The two of them arrived above the open space in an instant. When they saw the corpses of the 5 city lords below, their pupils constricted. The 5 city lords were all Ultimate Emperor realm experts, but they had all died. Did you kill them? The black-robed old man's face was ugly as he stared at Zhuowen, who was holding the bone spear. His eyes were filled with killing intent. This brat was truly audacious. He actually dared to cause trouble here and even killed the 5 city lords. The old man in the black robe had spent a lot of effort to recruit the 5 city lords, but now they had been killed right under his nose. How could he not be angry and hate? Raising his head slightly, Zhuowen sneered and said indifferently, "Yes, so what? What an audacious little bastard. How dare you cause trouble here? Don't you know the power of the Marquis of Baichuan? You'll suffer if you offend us," Xu Enyu immediately shouted at Zhuowen from behind the old man. In Xu Enyu's opinion, the young man below was so young, so he couldn't be very powerful. Now that the law enforcement elder was here, the brat was dead for sure. As a result, he needed to put on a good show before the elder. Zhuowen ignored the clown, Xu Enyu. Instead, he stared indifferently at the black-robed old man in the sky. He said, "There should be a few Ultimate Emperor realm experts who aren't weaker than you in the prison. Tell them to come out as well. You aren't qualified." The old man in the black robe frowned when he heard that. His brows furrowed even more when he saw the corpses of the 5 city lords. It was very likely that the 5 city lords had been killed by the young man before him, so he dared not be careless. "Who do you think you are? You want the elders to come at you together? Who gave you the guts? There's no need for the elders to do anything. I, Xu Enyu, can kill you myself." What an arrogant little bastard. Xu Enyu immediately became furious when he sensed Zhuowen's disregard. He pointed at Zhuowen and hurled a barrage of insults and mockery at him. He didn't hold back at all with his words. "Who do I think I am? Do you think you have the right to say that?" Finally, Zhuowen slowly turned his head and stared coldly at Xu Enyu. An intimidating presence surged out like a volcanic eruption. The surrounding air surged and formed layers of tornadoes. Many of the soldiers in the surroundings were pushed back by Zhuowen's powerful presence. Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator? The moment Zhuowen's aura erupted, the black-robed elder's pupils shrank to the size of needles. His face was filled with disbelief. This youth before him was probably even younger than Elviatao, but he had already reached the pinnacle Emperor realm? What kind of freak was this? Xu Enyu's voice also came to an abrupt halt. He stared at Zhuowen below as a trace of bitterness appeared on his face. He had never imagined that this young man would actually be an ultimate 5-wheel emperor who was not any weaker than the law enforcement elder. Humph. You've reached the ultimate emperor realm at such a young age. Your talent is indeed terrifying, but I'm afraid you don't have the right to make those two in prison come out. The old man in the black robe snorted coldly. I don't have the right. Zhuowen shook his head. He stomped his foot and instantly disappeared. Unknowingly, he had appeared behind Xu Enyu and the old man in the black robe. He flung the bone spear in his hand. It traversed through space and pierced Xu Enyu's back. Spurt. Blood spurted out from the bone spear. Xu Enyu's eyes widened and filled with fear. His expression gradually dimmed. He hadn't expected this young man to attack him. The black-robed old man could not help but break out in a cold sweat as he sensed the gradual loss of life around him and Zhuowen who was glaring at him from behind. He was actually unable to clearly see how Zhuowen had appeared behind him. Could it be that he was still hiding his strength? Tap, tap, tap. The old man in the black robe hurriedly retreated several hundred meters. He stared at Zhuowen with extreme fear. This young man was clearly only an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator, but he gave off an unfathomable feeling. Do I have the right now? With a flick of the bone spear, Xu Enyu's corpse fell to the ground. Zhuowen stared at the old man in the black robe 100 meters away and enunciated each word clearly. The old man in the black robe narrowed his eyes and his expression grew more solemn. However, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. He believed that Zhuowen might be stronger than him, but not by much. There was no need to ask the two people in the prison for this kind of thing. All of you, attack. Kill this young man and our house of Marquis Baichuan will not treat you unfairly. We will even promote you. If you shrink back, you and your families will not be able to escape the pursuit of our house of Marquis Baichuan. With a cold snort, the old man in the black robe immediately shouted at the tens of thousands of soldiers below. The strength that Zhuowen had displayed had indeed exceeded his expectations. However, in his opinion, with the support of tens of thousands of elite troops, Zhuowen was no match for him. The tens of thousands of soldiers below all paled when they heard this. They hadn't expected the old man in the black robe to be so ruthless as to threaten them with their families. However, many of the soldiers were quite tempted by the old man's promise. The house of Marquis Baichuan was one of the super forces. If they could be promoted to the house of Marquis Baichuan, it would be an absolute honor. Kill. As long as we kill this man, we will enjoy glory, splendor, and wealth. This young man must die. For the future of our families, this young man must die. Earth-shattering roars rang out from the tens of thousands of soldiers. Under the leadership of the old man in the black robe, the morale of these soldiers was greatly boosted. Zhuowen, what should we do? There are so many soldiers. Qiu Chou's face was filled with fear as he looked at the approaching soldiers. Just a bunch of pitiful worms who have been instigated. Zhuowen shook his head. Shortly after, he stomped his foot and 4 different colored earth fires slowly swept out from his body. They were the 9 heavens thunder inferno flame, the 3000 azure lotus flame, the star flame, and the blood flame. Although Zhuowen currently possessed 6 types of earth fires, he didn't want to expose the east rising purple cloud and the 9 nether cold flame that he had just subdued. In fact, the 4 colored refining flames were enough to deal with these weak soldiers. Fuse. 4 colored refining flames. As his hands formed a seal, the 4 different colored earth fires immediately gathered in Zhuowen's palms and turned into 4 flames that were constantly alternating. Boom. The 4 colored flames suddenly surged out. With Zhuowen as the center, it actually formed a monstrous sea of fire that soared into the sky and spread out in all directions. What is this? Why is this flame so strange? My feet are actually being burned. Ah, it's so painful. Run, this is not a simple flame. It's not something we can deal with. If we don't run, we will die. As the sea of fire swept out, 1/3 of the soldiers, which was close to 10,000, were directly burned into ashes by the terrifying heat the moment they came into contact with the sea of fire. They died without a complete corpse. A terrifying aura spread out. The remaining soldiers screamed and fled in all directions. This young man was not human at all. The sea of fire that he released with a wave of his hand actually killed 1/3 of their forces. It was too terrifying. Chapter 588. Breaking into the prison, the black-robed elder's pupils shrank. Zhuowen's strength had once again exceeded his expectations. 1/3 of the tens of thousands of elite troops had been wiped out in an instant. 4 types of earth fire. The black-robed elder involuntarily exclaimed. Boom. Seeing the fire dragon whizzing towards him, the black-robed old man shook his sleeve and a powerful energy surged out, transforming into a yuan power shield in front of him. The fire dragon smashed onto the shield, emitting a clear sound of metal clashing against metal. Humph. With a groan, the black-robed elder retreated as blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He looked at the fire dragon in horror. The fire dragon formed by the 4 colored flames was so powerful. 5-wheel golden claw. The black-robed elder's face darkened slightly. He reached out with his claw, and a huge golden claw that was a few 100 feet long appeared behind him. It slammed down fiercely. Boom! The giant claw and the fire dragon collided. Countless flames and magma surged as a powerful shockwave spread out. The surrounding airwaves swirled and the air shook. It was like a monstrous disaster, and the two were in a deadlock. Humph! You're just SOSO. Seeing the 5-wheel golden claw blocking the fire dragon, the black-robed elder let out a sigh of relief and snorted. When Zhuowen had appeared behind him and Xu Nu like a ghost, he had thought that Zhuowen's strength was far greater than his. Now it seemed that he had thought too much. Perhaps Zhuowen had a powerful movement skill that allowed him to appear behind him without anyone noticing. Just SOSO? He frowned. It seemed that the black-robed elder was not weak to be able to block the 4-colored flames. With a snort, Zhuowen pinched his left hand and the Ice Saint rune on the back of his hand lit up. A blue crystal slowly appeared. It was the body of the extreme cold ice. You can block the 4-colored flames, but I don't know if you can block the 4-colored lotus. Zhuowen sneered and waved his left hand. The blue crystal exploded, and a boundless blue cold chi surged out. It was like maggots that crawled to the bones, merging with the fire dragon in the sky. Ci. The sound of something burning could be heard. After the blue cold air rushed in, the huge fire dragon shrank and turned into a huge 4-colored lotus flower that was thousands of feet long. Rumble. The 4-colored lotus flower sat in the void and then bloomed brilliantly. An earth-shattering explosion soared into the sky, dyeing the whole world into a terrifying sea of fire. Catcher. The sea of fire spread out, and a terrifying power erupted. The 5-wheel golden claws were directly shattered into pieces, and a golden rain fell from the sky. The 5 rings of golden claws were broken, and the terrifying explosive force came down like a hot knife through butter, directly hitting the black-robed elder. Poochie. The black-robed elder could not resist at all. Under such terrifying power, he was like a powerless butterfly with broken wings. He fell down and smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. Whoosh! Zhuowen arrived at the crater in an instant. He raised his right hand and picked up the black-robed elder, who was severely injured and twitching in the crater. He said with a cold gaze, "Now, do I have the right to ask the 2 people in the prison to come out?" The black-robed elder's eyes were filled with fear, and he spat out blood. However, he still held on and said, "The 2 people in the prison are stronger than me. If you dare to kill me, you will die miserably. I don't want to listen to your nonsense. Since you don't want to say anything, I will just barge in." As he spoke, Zhuowen directly carried the black-robed old man and called out to Cho, who was standing nearby in a daze. After that, he walked towards the black prison at the center of the ruins. He wanted to see exactly what kind of trash the 2 experts that the black-robed old man spoke of were. Cho hurriedly followed. His gaze was focused on the black-robed elder in Zhuowen's hand. He still had a look of disbelief on his face. Although he knew that Zhuowen was strong, he did not expect him to be this strong. The black-robed elder was the law-enforcing elder of the Marquis of Baichuan's house. His strength was at the early stage of the ultimate emperor realm. To Cho, he was a lofty existence. But now, he had been easily defeated by Zhuowen. Moreover, he was being held in his hand like a chicken. This made Cho's heart thump. He was already filled with indescribable shock. Due to Zhuowen's intimidation just now, the soldiers around the black prison had long since fled, and it became exceptionally deserted. Standing at the entrance of the prison, Cho said with a grave expression, "Zhuowen, there are 2 experts guarding this prison. They were both transferred from the Marquis of Baichuan's house by Xu Tianliang. It is said that both of them are at the mid-stage of the ultimate emperor realm. They are much stronger than the guy in your hand, so you have to be careful." Zhuowen nodded when he heard this, and his expression became solemn. Xu Tianliang really thought highly of him, Zhuowen. He'd even sent 3 ultimate emperor realm experts to guard this black prison. He'd really put a lot of thought into this. "Lead the way, or die." Zhuowen's right hand grabbed the black-robed elder's neck. His voice was incomparably cold, and his tone was filled with dense killing intent. Sensing the violent aura from Zhuowen, the black-robed elder could not help but gulp. Cold sweat covered his forehead. He knew that if he did not agree, the young man before him would definitely kill him. "If I lead the way, will you let me go?" The black-robed elder still wanted to fight for a bargaining chip. He was worried that after leading the way, Zhuowen would directly kill him. "You have the right to negotiate with me. Either lead the way, or die right now." Zhuowen's tone was extremely unyielding. The black-robed elder's eyes narrowed. He snorted coldly, "Put me down first. I'll lead the way." Nodding, Zhuowen released his grip and said indifferently, "Then lead the way quickly." The black-robed old man didn't hesitate and led Zhuowen into the prison. With Zhuowen glaring at him from behind, the black-robed old man didn't dare to act rashly. The young man behind him was much more terrifying than him. If he acted rashly, he wouldn't be able to keep his life. "I can't compare to the two people in the prison. If they attack, both Cho and Zhuowen will die. At that time, I will naturally be able to escape." Thinking of this, the black-robed elder did not have much resentment. He began to lead the way seriously. At this moment, he placed all his hopes on the two people in the prison. The internal structure of the black prison was quite complicated. There were many corridors along the way, like a maze. According to the black-robed elder, the black prison was divided into 3 floors. The first 2 floors were mainly used for the soldiers to rest, and the 3rd floor was the important place to hold the prisoners. Under Zhuowen's urging, the black-robed elder directly led the 2 of them through the first 2 floors and arrived at the 3rd floor. At the junction of the 2nd and 3rd floors was a long corridor. The corridor was pitch black and looked quite gloomy. "Walk through this corridor. At the end of the corridor is the place where the prisoners are held." The black-robed elder pointed at the corridor in front of him with his right hand and said indifferently, "Then you continue to lead the way," Zhuowen said slowly. The black-robed elder nodded. The moment he turned around and entered the corridor, a strange look flashed across his eyes. The footsteps of the 3 people slowly sounded in the deep corridor. It sounded strange and loud. Finally, a speck of light appeared at the end of the corridor. The 3 of them immediately sped up. The moment they walked out of the corridor, an ominous premonition rose from the bottom of Zhuowen's heart. Soon after, the sound of something tearing through the air sounded out one after another. "Danger!" Zhuowen shouted loudly. The strong sense of danger made Zhuowen involuntarily pat the demon-suppressing green coffin on his back. Immediately, the demon-suppressing green coffin expanded several times and directly stood in front of Zhuowen and Cho. Ding ding ding! The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing continuously resounded in the entire space. Only then did Zhuowen and Cho realize that the sky above them was filled with arrows like a rain of rain. Every single arrow was suffused with a ghastly cold light, and its surface was overflowing with light. Just by looking at the aura it emitted, it was actually an earth-rank spirit treasure. Even Zhuowen couldn't help but be shocked when he was enveloped by so many earth-rank spirit treasure arrows. With so many earth-rank soul treasure arrows, even a 5th wheel ultimate emperor would probably be doomed if they were hit. If it were not for Zhuowen's quick reaction, he and Cho really would have suffered heavy losses. Damn it, that bastard. Cho's eyes were currently spitting fire. He could not help but curse fiercely. Needless to say, the main culprit who had led them here was the black-robed elder. The black-robed elder had never planned to bring them to the place where the captives were kept. Instead, he had lured them to such a dangerous place. He was probably planning to capture the 2 of them in one fell swoop. The rain of arrows lasted for a quarter of an hour before the space returned to silence. Zhuowen slowly put away the demon-suppressing green coffin. His expression was not very good. He had not expected the black-robed elder to be so bold as to actually dare to trick him. This was a sealed space surrounded by iron walls. There were thumb-sized holes in the walls. The rain of arrows should have come from these holes. The quality of your coffin is pretty good. It can actually block the attack of so many arrows. The black-robed elder crossed his arms on the other side of the space. He stared in surprise at the unscathed Zhuowen and Cho. The rain of arrows were all Earth-rank soul treasures, but they had all been blocked by the strange green coffin in front of Zhuowen. It seemed that the green coffin was not simple. At the same time, there were two other elders of similar age standing beside the black-robed elder. One of them had a long beard and looked amiable, while the other elder had a cold expression. These two elders should be the palace elders that Shu Tianliang had arranged to guard this prison. Moreover, they were both mid-stage Ultimate Emperor realm experts. They were much stronger than the black-robed elder. You should be Zhuowen, right? Other than Qiu Chou, only you, the monstrous genius Zhuowen, would be able to come all the way here to save Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City. The amiable elder smiled as he stared at Zhuowen. It seems that you know quite a lot. Zhuowen was rather surprised. There weren't many people who knew that he, Zhuowen, had broken through the Essence Tower. This amiable old man was able to guess his identity just by guessing. It seemed that he wasn't simple. I really didn't expect this. You actually came out alive after entering the Blood Demon inheritance. It seems that your luck is not bad. Chapter 589. The Fiends of Yin and Yang. Actually, the amiable-looking old man was rather shocked when he guessed that the young man before him was Zhuowen. He hadn't expected Zhuowen to actually make it out of the Blood Demon's inheritance. The pupils of the black-robed old man and the cold and indifferent old man shrunk upon hearing this. The two of them did not expect that Zhuowen had actually survived. This involuntarily caused the two of them to be shocked. However, there was more killing intent in their hearts. Zhuowen had killed Shu Liang and caused Shu Tianliang to miss out on an ancient inheritance. He had made the house of Marquis Baichuan a laughingstock in the battle for the Vitality Tower. Everyone in the house of Marquis Baichuan didn't have a good impression of Zhuowen. The amiable-looking old man is called Shu Sheng, and the cold-looking old man is called Shu Ming. They're rather famous in the house of Marquis Baichuan. They're known as the Fiends of Yin and Yang. Zhuowen, you have to be careful. Although they're only at the mid-stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm, they seem to have cultivated some sort of combination technique called the Yin-Yang lightning technique. It's said that they can use Yin-Yang lightning and fuse them into a terrifying special lightning. The Fiends of Yin and Yang once fought against a late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator without losing. Their existence is comparable to a late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Qiu Chou looked at the two old men in front of him fearfully as he introduced them to Zhuowen in a low voice. Clearly, the Fiends of Yin and Yang were extremely famous. Otherwise, Qiu Chou wouldn't be so cautious. A combination comparable to a late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Zhuowen didn't dare to be careless when he saw how cautious Qiu Chou was. We originally thought that you would die in the Blood Demon's inheritance, Zhuowen. It looks like we've underestimated you. However, since you've delivered yourself to our doorstep today, it's a perfect opportunity for us to catch you all in one fell swoop. If we bring your head back to the house of Marquis Baichuan, the eldest prince and the Marquis will probably be happy. Shu Ming licked his lips with a cold expression. His voice was filled with cruelty. They had naturally seen the battle between the black-robed old man and Zhuowen. In their opinion, Zhuowen was quite strong, but he was only comparable to a mid-stage ultimate king. When the Yin-Yang fiends joined forces, they weren't even afraid of a late-stage ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Taking down Zhuowen would be a piece of cake. Shu Sheng, you don't need to talk nonsense with this little bastard. Let's just take him down together. It's said that the crown prince loves to torture people to death. If we capture this Zhuowen, cripple his cultivation, and then hand him over to the crown prince, I'm afraid we'll be able to earn more merits. Shu Ming chuckled, and his gaze was filled with disdain towards Zhuowen. As far as he was concerned, taking down Zhuowen was merely a trivial matter. You're right. If we take down Zhuowen and Qiu Chou, we'll have enough people. When the time comes, we can go back and report on our mission. Shu Sheng nodded with a smile. The two of them exchanged questions and answers. They didn't take Zhuowen seriously at all. Perhaps in their opinion, although Zhuowen's strength wasn't bad, it might not be enough to deal with them. Therefore, they didn't care too much about Zhuowen. Zhuowen only quietly watched the conversation between Shu Sheng and Shu Ming. His face was filled with a cold smile. These two people were really confident. They were actually openly discussing how to torture Shu Tianliang after capturing him. This made Zhuowen feel even more disgusted with the house of Marquis Baichuan. Shaking his head, Zhuowen took a step forward and instantly activated the lightning serpent wings and lightning serpent wings. His entire body turned into a ball of lightning as his speed soared to the extreme. He actually swept behind Xu Sheng and Xu Ming. Xu Sheng and Xu Ming were engrossed in their conversation and didn't pay attention to Zhuowen's actions at all. At this moment, the loud rumbling of thunder immediately attracted their attention. When they noticed that Zhuowen had unknowingly appeared behind them, they were instantly shocked. At this moment, the black-robed old man standing behind Xu Sheng and Xu Ming looked at Zhuowen with a face full of terror. He couldn't help but shout, "Elders, quickly save me, how dare you!" Xu Sheng and Xu Ming shouted at the same time. Their palms suddenly blasted behind them in an attempt to stop the audacious Zhuowen. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was too fast. With 2 pairs of lightning wings, Zhuowen's speed was much faster than an ordinary Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Lightning flashed through the air and instantly dodged Xu Sheng and Xu Ming's attacks. He instantly arrived before the black-robed old man and extended his right hand, wanting to lift the old man up. "It won't be that easy to kill me." A trace of coldness flashed through the black-robed old man's eyes. He knew that as long as he blocked Zhuowen's attack, Xu Sheng and Xu Ming would be able to arrive and save him. Quintuple Wheel Vajra Claw. The black-robed old man once again used his trump card armor skill. An enormous golden claw tore through the air and pressed down towards Zhuowen. "The same move doesn't have the slightest effect on me," Zhuowen sneered. All 360 acupoints in his body opened at the same time. Instantly, his entire body was filled with blazing golden light. He had used the nirvana of the Grand Sun Break. A crisp crack resounded as the golden claw was directly shattered. The black-robed old man let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of blood. He hurriedly begged for mercy. "Zhuowen, spare me. I didn't mean to bring you here. As long as you spare me, I'll take you to where the real captives are. Do you think I'll still believe you? I originally intended to let you go, but unfortunately, you didn't seize the opportunity. What's the use of regretting it now?" Zhuowen's voice was icy cold like 10,000-year-old ice. The black-robed old man was directly blasted into a bloody mist as the golden fist smashed down. He was completely dead. "Damn it. You Zhuowen, you actually dare to kill someone right under our noses. You're really tired of living. Die for this old man." At this moment, Xu Sheng and Xu Ming arrived as well. They both struck out with their palms. A powerful force surged out and blasted down on Zhuowen's head. The force was so powerful that it shattered the space. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He stomped his feet and used his lightning wings to transform into a lightning shadow. He just happened to dodge this terrifying attack. "You run faster than a mouse." Xu Ming's eyes widened in anger as he snorted coldly. The lightning shadow flashed and Zhuowen returned to Qiu Chou's side. He looked at them and transmitted his voice to Qiu Chou. "Senior Qiu Chou, leave this place and find where the real captives are. Leave these two to me." Qiu Chou was stunned when he heard this. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Zhuowen, are you sure you can deal with these two? If Xu Ming and Xu Sheng join forces, their strength can rival a late-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm martial artist. That black-robed old man can't compare to them. Don't worry. Even the Blood Demon's inheritance couldn't kill me. Do you think these two old farts can kill me? You should hurry and find my grandfather and the others. I'm afraid these two have a backup plan and will transfer them away. When that time comes, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to find them." Zhuowen's tone was somewhat anxious. He was extremely worried about Zhuo Xiangding and the others. With Xu Tianliang's hatred for him, the Zhuo family would probably be tortured. He only hoped that Zhuo Xiangding and his family would be fine. "All right. Then be careful. If you can't defeat them, it's best to escape. Don't risk your life." Qiu Chou knew what Zhuowen was thinking. He also knew that with his current strength, he would be a burden if he stayed by Zhuowen's side. Therefore, he agreed decisively. With that, Cho Cho stomped his foot and turned around to rush towards the tunnel behind him. Where do you think you're going? Today, the two of you can forget about leaving this place. Die. Xu Ming glared and suddenly slapped out with his palm. He wanted to block Cho Cho's back. With me here, do you think you'll succeed? Zhuowen sneered. He swung the bone spear in his hand and used the ascending dragon style to block Xu Ming's attack. Xu Ming also retreated because of this. His gaze became serious as he looked at Zhuowen. This kid is not simple. Xu Ming, be careful. Xu Sheng frowned slightly. Although Zhuowen's aura was only at the initial stage of the ultimate Five Wheels Emperor stage, the strength he displayed was completely extraordinary. He was actually able to force Xu Ming back with a single move. Millimeter. This kid is indeed a little strange. Let's join forces. Xu Ming also nodded. In his heart, he began to fear Zhuowen. Looks like it was not a fluke that this person was able to kill the black-robed old man in front of their eyes. Instead, he was truly capable. Yin and Yang lightning, create the world. Xu Sheng and Xu Ming shouted in a low voice. Two different colored lightning surged out from their bodies. White lightning surged out from Xu Sheng's body while black lightning surged out from Xu Ming's body. The black and white lightning intertwined and turned into a spinning disk of lightning. For a moment, the black and white lightning wreaked havoc in the entire space. The powerful force almost collapsed the surrounding iron walls. Its power was extremely terrifying. Zhuowen. There aren't many people who can make us yin and yang fiends use yin and yang lightning. Back then, we've killed many cultivators of the same level and even seriously injured an ultimate Five Wheels Emperor stage cultivator. It's not too late for you to regret now. As long as you break your own arms, we'll spare your life and take you back to the Marquis House of Baichuan. How about it? Xu Sheng was still smiling and his tone was amiable. However, the words he said were extremely vicious. Asking him to break his own arms and go back to the Marquis House of Baichuan with them was no different from suicide. Are the two of you pigs? Break your own arms and go back to the Marquis House of Baichuan with you? Even a pig wouldn't agree to this condition. Or is your brain worse than a pig's? Zhuowen looked at Xu Sheng as if he was looking at an idiot. He looked at the smiling Xu Sheng and said something that almost made Xu Sheng choke. Zhuowen's mouth was too venomous. He actually called the two of them pigs. It seems like you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Then we can only take your corpse back. What a pity. We originally wanted to let you live a little longer. You're courting death. Xu Ming sneered. The two of them looked at each other and formed a complicated seal with their hands. The yin and yang tai chi lightning in the sky cut through the void and swept directly towards Zhuowen. Courting death? I don't think so. Looking at the menacing yin and yang tai chi lightning, Zhuowen sneered and patted the green coffin on his back with his right hand. Creak. Chapter 590. The Zhuo family that was taken away as the terrifying pressure descended, the entire space froze. Xu Sheng and Xu Ming's faces were still filled with shock. This terrifying pressure actually made them tremble with fear. The Taiji yin-yang thunderbolt in the air was completely frozen by this pressure. Then, it exploded into countless black and white thunderbolts. What? The Taiji yin-yang thunderbolt was broken just like that. Xu Ming and Xu Sheng were shocked when they saw the black and white thunderbolts explode from the pressure. How could this pressure be so terrifying? It wasn't something that an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator could possess. Thud thud thud. The crisp sound of footsteps slowly rang out. Zhuowen slowly walked over with the green coffin on his back. His hair was disheveled like stars, and his eyes were like the moon. The pressure he exuded was like a ferocious beast. It gradually pressed down on the two of them like a towering mountain. It actually made them feel as if their movements were stagnant. Damn it. We can't let this guy get close. Otherwise, this pressure will suppress our strength to the greatest extent. Let's work together to get rid of this guy. Xu Sheng could already feel the threat from Zhuowen. He also realized that the pressure was becoming more and more terrifying as Zhuowen approached. If they let Zhuowen get close to them, They probably wouldn't even be able to use 70% of their strength. Taiji Yin-Yang Thunderbolt, overturn the world. The two of them growled again. Their hand seals suddenly changed. Two black and white thunderbolts that were even more terrifying than before suddenly surged out. They formed a Taiji Yin-Yang diagram that was several hundred meters tall in the air. Surging black and white thunderbolts revolved around the Taiji Yin-Yang diagram and wantonly spread out. Zhuowen, you must die this time. The two of them clearly intended to fight with their lives on the line. They could feel the terror of the pressure released by Zhuowen. If Zhuowen was allowed to get close to them, the possibility of them losing was too high. Zhuowen still walked over leisurely. He could feel the fear on Xu Sheng and Xu Ming's faces. Zhuowen also increasingly felt the terror of the blood demon's pressure. He had only opened a crack, but it was enough to make Xu Sheng and Xu Ming, both ultimate Emperor realm cultivators, so cautious. However, Zhuowen also discovered that a portion of the pressure was also acting on him. However, compared to Xu Sheng and Xu Ming, it was much smaller. No wonder Brother Hantian only allowed me to open a third of the demon-suppressing green coffin. It turns out that there are certain side effects, and one-third should be the limit that I can endure. Recalling Lu Hantian's advice, Zhuowen couldn't help but nod. Lu Hantian was worthy of being an Empyrean powerhouse. He had seen through Zhuowen's depths with a single glance and put forward the most appropriate suggestion. Boom. Above the void, after the Yin-Yang Tai Chi Thunderbolt was formed, it smashed down on Zhuowen like layers of mountains. The surrounding space was torn apart, and it was filled with surging electricity. It was unstoppable. Raising his head, Zhuowen revealed a mocking smile. He wanted to see just how strong the blood demon's pressure was today. Zhuowen's right hand patted the green coffin on his back once more, and the coffin lid opened by a sliver. This time, the coffin lid opened by a tenth, and a pressure that was several times more terrifying than the previous one surged out, crushing down. Zhuowen also felt his body sink, and his knees buckled slightly. His guess was right. The more the coffin lid was opened, the more terrifying the pressure he had to endure. Boom, boom, boom. The Yin-Yang Tai Chi Thunderbolt that was hundreds of feet long came crushing down. However, the moment Zhuowen increased the pressure, the Yin-Yang Tai Chi Thunderbolt actually collapsed inch by inch, turning into fine electricity. Plop. When the extremely terrifying pressure descended, Xu Sheng and Xu Ming were inexplicably shocked. They involuntarily knelt on one knee on the ground, and could only use about half of their strength. The pressure was so fierce that it made the two of them feel terrified. How is this possible? How can you, an ultimate five-wheel emperor, have such a terrifying pressure? How did you do it? How did you do it? Xu Ming's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Zhuowen, who was slowly walking over. Thud, thud, thud. The two of them wanted to raise their hands to block, but the pressure on their bodies was so terrifying that they couldn't even breathe or exert any strength. They could only watch as Zhuowen's bone spear ruthlessly smashed into their chests. Thud. Spitting out mouthfuls of blood, the two of them flew back at the same time, smashing into the iron wall behind them. They smashed into a human-shaped pit, and their entire bodies were embedded in it. The two of you should go down to the underworld and ask such questions. Shaking his head, Zhuowen's figure flashed past, and the bone spear turned into a cold light in mid-air, sweeping past the two's necks. Blood immediately spurted out, but Xu Sheng and Xu Ming could only hold their necks tightly, looking at Zhuowen with unwillingness. They were really unwilling to accept this. They hadn't even used their full strength, but they were actually killed by Zhuowen just like that. This loss was really too humiliating. Bang! Putting away his spear, Zhuowen patted the coffin with his right hand, and the coffin lid, which was originally open by a tenth, slowly closed. Before Xu Sheng and Xu Ming died, they also saw the green coffin slowly closing on Zhuowen's back, and the pressure that disappeared as the green coffin closed. The two of them finally knew where the pressure had come from. It turned out that it was the inconspicuous coffin on Zhuowen's back. What exactly is that green coffin on Zhuowen's back? What kind of monster is sealed in that green coffin? Why does it produce such a terrifying pressure? This was the only question that Xu Sheng and Xu Ming had before they died, and it was also their last question. Looks like the power of the blood demon is your biggest gain from this trip to the inheritance of the blood demon. This blood demon is indeed an ancient saint-level creature. If you can make good use of this pressure, you can easily defeat someone stronger than you. Suddenly, Xiao Hei's voice, which had been silent for a long time, rang out in his mind. Xiao Hei, you finally spoke. You didn't respond all this time. Could it be that you've been refining the blood demon's origin all this time? Hearing Xiao Hei's voice, Zhuowen couldn't help but ask excitedly. Yes. This dragon lord has been in a semi-conscious state all this time, refining the blood demon's origin. The blood demon's origin is indeed enormous. This dragon lord spent a month and only absorbed a small part of it. It's really powerful, Xiao Hei said again, her voice filled with joy. Then if you completely refine it, will you be able to fully recover? Zhuowen knew that Xiao Hei's identity was extremely unusual. She was a freak that had survived from the ancient times. Her strength at her peak was probably extremely terrifying. If Xiao Hei could recover to her peak, wouldn't she be able to carry him around? Kid, what are you smiling foolishly for? Although the blood demon's origin is powerful, to completely recover this dragon lord's origin is like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. You still have to collect sacred runes in the future. Those things are the most important to this dragon lord. Xiao Hei snorted. All right then. Hearing this, Zhuowen was slightly disappointed. However, he was even more curious about Xiao Hei. The blood demon's origin was so enormous, but to Xiao Hei, it was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Then, wouldn't Xiao Hei be a creature of a much higher level than the blood demon? Zhuowen, I've already found everyone. Quickly come and join us, okay? Suddenly, an imprint on Zhuowen's palm lit up. This was the sound transmission imprint that Cho had left on his hand. It could be used to transmit messages over long distances. Hearing this, Zhuowen's face lit up with joy. He took a step forward and rushed towards the place that Cho had marked. It turned out that the place where the prisoners were imprisoned was not on the 3rd floor, but on the 1st floor. The black-robed old man who had led the way had no intention of bringing them to the place where the prisoners were imprisoned. On the contrary, he had planned to kill Zhuowen and Cho. However, the black-robed old man had never imagined that Zhuowen would actually be so strong. Not only had he lost his life, even Xu Sheng and Xu Ming had perished at Zhuowen's hands. This was truly a double loss. After passing through many corridors, Zhuowen arrived at the 1st floor and quickly found the place that Cho had mentioned. This was an extremely remote room. It was very narrow inside, cold and damp. Rows of cages had been set up in this room. At this moment, these cages had basically been destroyed. At this moment, a group of people had gathered in the center of the room. The person in the lead was Cho. Behind Cho, Zhuowen saw many familiar faces, such as Ouyang Yuntu, Ouyang Hanxian, Jiyu Yutian, Jiyu Xin, and others. However, after gradually sweeping past the faces of this group of people, Zhuowen's heart slowly sank. This was because he realized that in this group of people, other than the people from Broken Rock City, there were also people from the governor's mansion of Rattan Armor City and the Huban sect. However, there was no one from his Zhuo family. Cho came to Zhuowen with a face full of shame and said, Zhuowen, I'm sorry, your Zhuo family isn't here. It's said that Xu Tianliang brought them back to the Marquis of Baichuan's mansion alone. I'm afraid they're in a bad situation. Boom. Hearing this, Zhuowen's mind went blank. He also didn't expect that his Zhuo family would be taken away by Xu Tianliang. With the degree of hatred that Xu Tianliang had for him, he didn't know what he would do to his family. Xu Tianliang. Clenching his fists, the veins on Zhuowen's forehead bulged. His voice was like a beast's roar. This Xu Tianliang had repeatedly challenged Zhuowen's bottom line. This had already caused Zhuowen's heart to be filled with monstrous killing intent. This person must be killed by Zhuowen. Senior Qiu, when did Xu Tianliang take our Zhuo family? Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen asked in a low voice. Half a month ago. With Xu Tianliang's speed, he should have arrived at the Marquis of Baichuan's mansion in the prefecture capital. Zhuowen, Don't do anything stupid. The Marquis of Baichuan's mansion is extremely powerful in the prefecture capital. Don't be impulsive and barge into the Marquis of Baichuan's mansion. Qiu Chou also felt Zhuowen's anger. He was worried that Zhuowen would let his emotions affect his decisions and go to the Marquis of Baichuan's mansion alone. That was simply courting death. Chapter 591. Mysterious youth. Zhuowen shook his head. He had to go to the Baichuan Marquis mansion this time. He didn't care about Xu Tianliang, but this guy shouldn't have dared to touch the Zhuo family. How could Zhuowen tolerate it? Senior Qiu, you don't have to worry about me. I won't be impulsive when I go to the Baichuan Marquis mansion. However, I won't care about the Zhuo family. You should settle the wounded around first. After instructing Qiu Chou, Zhuowen waved his right hand and took out the bronze paper kite given by Lu Hantian. It flashed with a green light and turned into a giant green bird. Zhuowen jumped up and looked at the people below silently. Then, he turned into a green shadow and disappeared into the sky. Qiu Chou could only nod helplessly. He knew Zhuowen's stubborn character very well. Moreover, Zhuowen's strength was much more terrifying than his. Even if he wanted to stop him, he wouldn't be able to. As the green shadow flashed, Zhuowen's speed soared to the extreme. His eyes were bloodshot and full of murderous intent. Xu Tianliang had completely touched Zhuowen's bottom line. This time, Zhuowen must kill this person. Suddenly, Zhuowen frowned. He felt a sharp gust of wind behind him. He quickly pressed his palm on the back of the bronze paper kite and controlled the green bird to change direction. Bang! The strong wind swept past the green bird. Only then did Zhuowen realize that this strong wind was actually a huge saber qi that was dozens of feet long. The blade qi swept across and blasted the dense forest below. Suddenly, it was earth-shattering. Hundreds of miles of dense forest collapsed and turned into a huge bear pit. Who is it? How dare you stop me? Seeing that horrifying saber qi, Zhuowen's eyelids twitched. He stopped 100 meters away and looked behind him with a cold gaze. He saw a stout man carrying a 3-meter-long saber on his back walking through the air. Moreover, as this person walked through the air, countless saber qi formed around his body. The saber qi raged and turned into a storm of saber qi that surrounded this person. This person was definitely an expert. Furthermore, he was an extremely horrifying expert. To think that he was able to produce such a horrifying saber qi with just a raise of his hand. This was the manifestation of a saber technique that had reached the pinnacle. What shocked Zhuowen even more was that he couldn't see through the aura of this man with a huge blade. This could only mean one thing, and that was that this man's cultivation was far above Zhuowen's. This person is at least a 6-wheel ultimate emperor. Zhuowen became more and more fearful as he looked at the burly young man. This person's age was about the same as Elviatau's, but the aura he exuded was even more terrifying than Elviatau's. This person was definitely a genius more terrifying than Elviatau. When did such a terrifying genius appear in the house of Marquis Qin? Who are you? Why are you stopping me? Zhuowen asked in a low voice. 100 meters away, the young man with a huge blade on his back slowly stopped. Only then did Zhuowen carefully observe his appearance. This person wore clothes made of coarse cloth. His exposed skin was the color of wheat. His muscles were bulging, and he was tall. However, the huge blade on his back was even larger than his body. It looked extremely exaggerated. The young man with the huge blade crossed his arms. He looked at Zhuowen with a burning gaze. He said loudly, "I never thought that a monstrous genius like you would appear in the tiny Muqin County. You've reached the 5-wheel ultimate emperor at the age of 19. Your talent is very good. You can rival the geniuses of the imperial family." This person's voice was coarse and wild. Zhuowen frowned when he heard this. From this person's words, this person didn't seem to be from Muqin County. Furthermore, he mentioned the imperial family. Could this person be a genius from the imperial capital county? Everyone knew that the greatest power in the Qingxian Empire was undoubtedly the imperial family of the imperial capital county. Emperor Qing was the protector of the imperial family. The imperial family's position was undoubtedly extremely stable and powerful. However, this person spoke of the imperial family as if it was only natural. He was probably a genius from a great power in the imperial capital county. However, Zhuowen was puzzled. Why would such a genius come to Muqin County? Moreover, he even tried to stop him. I said, "Why are you stopping me?" Zhuowen didn't want to talk nonsense with the young man with the huge blade and said coldly, "You've mastered spear essence, right? Just now, when you were fighting in the ruins of Broken Rock City, I was watching from a distance. You're a martial artist who has mastered the essence of spear essence. Furthermore, you've mastered spear essence, which is mainly offensive." Speaking of this, the young man with the huge blade's gaze became extremely hot. It was as if he had found a favorite toy, which made Zhuowen's scalp tingle. However, the words of the young man with the huge blade shocked Zhuowen. This person was indeed not simple. He actually didn't notice this person nearby when he was in the ruins of Broken Rock City. "So what if I am? What do you want to do? Did the house of Marquis Baichuan send you to kill me?" Zhuowen said coldly as he was secretly vigilant. Unexpectedly, the young man with the huge blade shook his head and said, "I don't know the house of Marquis Baichuan that you speak of. I accidentally passed by the ruins of Broken Rock City and saw that you've actually mastered spear essence. So my hands itched and I wanted to ask you for advice." Speaking of this, the young man with the huge blade rubbed his hands and revealed a trace of excitement on his face. Hearing this, Zhuowen couldn't help but be speechless. It turned out that this person was a martial arts fanatic. He actually came to ask for advice because of such a trivial matter. Zhuowen was actually somewhat speechless. "I have an urgent matter now and need to rush back to the county capital. So, I can't accompany you now." Zhuowen cupped his fists and patted the green bird with his right hand. He intended to leave this place, but a blade chi flashed through the void and actually blocked Zhuowen's path. "I don't care if you have an urgent matter or not. Today, I must ask you for advice. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving." The young man with the huge blade shook his head and said with a calm expression, "You won't let me go? Just by you?" Looking at the young man with the huge blade repeatedly blocking him, Zhuowen was also annoyed. Now that the Zhuo family's clansman had been taken away by Xu Tianliang, if he was a step late, his clansman would be in more danger. How could he waste time here? Haha. Just by me? Show me your spear intent. I haven't seen anyone outside of the Imperial City master this kind of intent realm for a long time. Can you broaden my horizons? The young man with the huge blade's eyes blazed. Perhaps because of his excitement, the terrifying blade chi around him began to become chaotic and dense. If a warrior with weaker strength was involved in this blade chi, he would certainly die without a burial place. Zhuowen let out a sigh of relief. He knew that the young man with the huge blade in front of him was a martial arts fanatic. In other words, he was a one-track-minded guy. Talking to such a person would be a waste of energy. Zhuowen patted the green coffin behind him with his right hand and directly opened it by 1/10. A terrifying pressure burst out, like a lofty mountain, and directly crushed towards the young man with the huge blade. This pressure. How can it be so strong? Feeling the sudden pressure, the young man with the huge blade narrowed his eyes and cried out in surprise. This pressure was unbelievably strong. It wasn't something that a human warrior could emit. But soon, he laughed heartily and said, "This is the feeling. You're really not ordinary. Although you're a little weak, you have a lot of trump cards. I like it, haha." The young man with the huge blade laughed and stomped his foot. An even more terrifying blade chi surged out from his body and directly overshadowed the blood demon's pressure. So strong. 1/10 of the pressure was something that even a fifth-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm expert couldn't withstand, but this person had directly broken it and looked so relaxed. Just how strong was this person? I can't waste time with him. I have to hurry to the Imperial City. With a cold snort, Zhuowen slapped the green coffin again. This time, he directly opened it by 1/5 of the gap. Instantly, the pressure in the surroundings increased by several times, instantly breaking through the terrifying saber chi around the young man with the saber. Hey! Interesting. It can even strengthen. How interesting. The young man's body sank, but he smiled even more happily. He pulled out the giant saber on his back, and a mysterious and terrifying aura swept out along with the saber chi. It actually blocked the pressure that had been strengthened several times. Concept. This guy has also mastered a concept. What he used just now was blade intent. The moment the young man with the huge blade pulled out his huge blade, Zhuowen frowned. This young man with the huge blade was very strong. He actually gave off the feeling of facing a mountain. This person was definitely a monstrous genius, far more monstrous than LV Atao. Awesome. Awesome. The young man with the huge blade shook his right hand, and the huge blade in his hand poured out like a curtain of rain, faintly showing signs of overpowering the pressure. Zhuowen's expression changed abruptly. He said to himself, I can't drag this out any longer. I have to leave quickly. Thinking of this, Zhuowen directly controlled the bronze paper kite. With a whoosh, it turned into a green shadow and disappeared into the horizon. Its speed was almost as fast as it could be. Break, break, break. At the same time, the young man with the huge blade slashed out 10 times in a row, each strike fiercer than the last. Although it looked like an ordinary attack, with the support of the mysterious blade intent, its power was terrifying to the extreme. Crack. The surrounding pressure was instantly broken by the terrifying blade force. The young man with the huge blade soared into the sky and laughed wildly. Interesting, interesting. You're clearly just a 5-wheel ultimate emperor, but you can actually exert such a terrifying pressure. Let's continue to fight. Hey! Where is he? After breaking through the pressure, the young man with the huge blade laughed heartily. Just as he was about to exchange a few more moves with Zhuowen, he suddenly realized that the surroundings were empty. Zhuowen had already disappeared. That guy just said that he had urgent matters to attend to in the prefecture capital. Could it be that he really went to the prefecture capital? No, I must go find him again. It's rare to meet an opponent with such a temper. I can't miss this chance. With that, the young man with the huge blade put away his huge blade. With a stomp of his foot, countless blade chi swept out. His entire body turned into a ray of flowing light and disappeared into the horizon. If Zhuowen knew that this fellow was like a sticky candy, sticking to him without letting go, how would he feel? 2 days later, Zhuowen, who was riding the bronze paper kite, finally arrived at the prefecture capital. He knew that it was impossible to break into Marquis Baichuan's residence by himself. He could only ask Lu Hantian for help. Moreover, in these 2 days, Zhuowen seemed to have comprehended something. With the help of the demon-suppressing green coffin, his strength had broken through to the mid-stage of the 5-wheel ultimate emperor realm. Chapter 592. Entering the house of Marquis Qin in the hall on the top floor of the 100-Year Brew restaurant, Lu Hantian was sitting with his legs crossed and leaning against a chair. There were delicacies on both sides of the armrest, while Elder Zui Wang was rubbing Lu Hantian's shoulders and back with a flattering smile. Yo, kid, you're back. You're quite fast. It's only been 5 days and you're back. Little Wang Wang, go and greet Master Zhuo. Lu Hantian pointed at Zhuowen and said to Elder Zui Wang behind him. Greetings, Master Zhuo. Elder Zui Wang did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly arrived in front of Zhuowen. His face was filled with flattering smiles as he nodded and bowed. His expression was extremely respectful. Looking at Elder Zui Wang's respectful appearance, Zhuowen was too lazy to pay attention to him. He only responded indifferently and arrived in front of Lu Hantian. He said solemnly, Big brother Hantian, I'm afraid I'll need your help this time. Seeing Zhuowen like this, Lu Hantian no longer sloppily sat up and said, What's wrong? Didn't you save your family and friends? I saved a portion of them. However, my Zhuo family was brought back to the Baichuan Marquis mansion by Shu Tianliang. I'm afraid I'll have to barge into the Baichuan Marquis mansion this time. Zhuowen sighed. Hearing this, Lu Hantian narrowed his eyes and shook his head. The Baichuan Marquis mansion is not simple. In my opinion, if you barge in alone, I'm afraid the odds are against you. Frowning slightly, Zhuowen did not expect that even Lu Hantian would say this. Could it be that there was an even more terrifying expert in the Baichuan Marquis mansion other than Xu Chang? I must barge into the Baichuan Marquis mansion. My family is still in Xu Tianliang's hands. I can't ignore it. Zhuowen shook his head and said somewhat stubbornly. Lu Hantian rubbed his chin with his right hand and pondered for a moment before saying, "How about this? Come back with me to the house of Marquis Qin. I, your big brother, have a way for you to save your family." Zhuowen's eyes flashed. He knew that Lu Hantian was going to help him. As long as Lu Hantian helped him, the chances of saving the Zhuo family would be much higher. Let's go. With that, Lu Hantian waved his sleeve and led Zhuowen away from the century-old brew. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the center of the provincial capital. It was an extremely spacious mansion. This mansion was the famous house of Marquis Qin. Zhuowen was shocked when he saw the dragon-like mansion in front of him. The house of Marquis Qin was indeed worthy of being the #1 faction in Muqin County. Its mansion occupied such a large area that it was even several times larger than a supercity. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter. Otherwise, they will be killed without mercy. At the door, 2 armored soldiers with powerful auras flashed their weapons and shouted at Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. "Kill your sister without mercy. Get out of my way. When I was still in the house of Marquis Qin, the two of you weren't even born yet." Lu Hantian was extremely domineering. He shouted loudly and the 2 soldiers in front of the door fell to the ground. Lu Hantian then led Zhuowen into the mansion. Lu Hantian was a genius of the house of Marquis Qin after all. He was quite familiar with the roads inside the house of Marquis Qin. He led Zhuowen into the depths of the mansion without hesitation. "Let's keep going. We should be able to reach the inner hall of the house of Marquis Qin soon. At that time, we will be able to find Lu Nantian directly," Lu Hantian said as he walked. However, when he mentioned Lu Nantian, Lu Hantian's expression changed. With Zhuowen's keen senses, he naturally noticed it. He was also very puzzled. In fact, when Lu Hantian's deeds were different from what Lu Nantian had said, Zhuowen suspected that there was something fishy going on. Now, looking at Lu Hantian's expression, he was afraid that the matter back then was not so simple. Although he was extremely puzzled, Zhuowen did not ask. He knew that as long as he met Lu Nantian, the truth of what happened back then would be completely revealed. "Who are the 2 of you? Why have I never seen the 2 of you in the house?" Suddenly, a fierce shout came from behind the 2 of them. It made Zhuowen and Lu Hantian's bodies freeze. Moreover, Zhuowen discovered that this shout gave him a trace of familiarity. He could not help but think of a person. A strange expression appeared on his face. Turning around, Zhuowen discovered that there were about 5 people standing behind him. The person in the lead was wearing a brocade robe. He had a handsome face and a slender figure. It was actually the 3rd prince of the house of Marquis Qin, Lu Yuanhua. The 4 people standing behind Lu Yuanhua were middle-aged men with terrifying auras. Their strength was not weaker than Zhuowen. 1 or 2 of them were even stronger than Zhuowen. "Zhuowen?" When LV Yuanhua saw Zhuowen, who was carrying a green coffin on his back, he couldn't help but be stunned. Then, his face revealed a look of ecstasy, and he laughed complacently. "It seems that a bastard like you has a tough life. Even the inheritance of the blood devil could not kill you. However, since you have broken into the house of Marquis Qin today, don't think that you can leave alive. For elders, these 2 people have broken into our house of Marquis Qin. We should immediately execute them on the spot to spread the prestige of our house of Marquis Qin. Otherwise, if any small fry can casually break into our house of Marquis Qin in the future, wouldn't it be a mess?" The 4 old men nodded when they heard this. They had also heard of Zhuo Wen's reputation. Although they were surprised that Zhuo Wen was actually able to come out alive, they only thought that he was lucky. Moreover, these 4 elders were in Lu Yuanhua's faction. Now that Lu Yuanhua had spoken, they naturally would not disobey him. "I think the 2 of you should tie your hands and come with us. This way, You will suffer less. One of the elders with the most powerful aura strode over. His nose was high, and he was full of disdain for Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. In his opinion, the two people in front of him were sloppy like a beggar, and the other was carrying a coffin. He was afraid that they were not powerful people. He looked down on them from the beginning. If the two of them were obedient and followed him, he could be merciful. However, if they were not obedient, they could not blame him for being ruthless. Zhuowen shook his head. He was very clear about Lu Hantian's violent temper. These people had offended him so thoughtlessly. He was afraid that they would suffer later. Seeing that the two of them did not say anything, the elder frowned and said, "Are you afraid? Since you are afraid, then come with us. Lowly people like you are not qualified to enter the house of Marquis Qin." Good, good, good. A group of dogs who bully others because of their master's power. When did the house of Marquis Qin become like this? How did Lu Nantian manage it in the past 100 years? He raised such a group of dogs who are worse than pigs. Lu Hantian's face was gloomy, and his voice became extremely cold. His eyes were full of coldness and ruthlessness as he stared at the elder. How dare you scold this old man? You are courting death. The elder's face changed slightly. He stamped his foot and directly hit Lu Hantian with his palm. He wanted to kill this sloppy beggar who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Get lost. Lu Hantian waved his sleeve, and a force like rolling thunder surged out. Under this force, the elder could not resist at all. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. He rolled on the ground for nearly 100 meters, and then fainted. What? You dare to touch the people of the house of Marquis Qin? I think you are really courting death. Lu Yuanhua was shocked and angry. He did not expect this sloppy beggar to be so strong. Courting death? Humph. I came here today to look for Lu Nantian. Back then, even Lu Nantian did not dare to be so presumptuous in front of me. You juniors dare to speak to me like this. Lu Hantian waved his sleeve again. Lu Yuanhua and the other three elders were forced back, and they spat out a mouthful of blood. Zhuowen. Let's go. With that, Lu Hantian ignored Lu Yuanhua and the others and led Zhuowen into the depths of the house of Marquis Qin. There was a huge inner hall in the depths of the house of Marquis Qin. The inner hall was where the Marquis of Muqin usually dealt with matters. In front of the inner hall was an extremely vast square made of white jade. It was sparkling and translucent. There were nearly 100 people neatly lined up in the square. They were all about the same age, young men in their 20s. Their auras were surging, and their cultivations were not lower than the ultimate emperor realm. They were all talented geniuses. Lu Nantian stood above the square with his hands behind his back. His eyes were like torches as he looked at the nearly 100 geniuses in the square below. A trace of satisfaction appeared on his resolute face. These nearly 100 geniuses were naturally the results of the selection of the Origin Qi Tower. Lu Nantian was looking forward to these geniuses achieving good results in the upcoming battle of the 9 counties and winning glory for Muqin County. Deng deng deng. The crisp sound of footsteps suddenly came from outside the square, causing Lu Nantian to frown slightly. He had instructed that no one was allowed to enter the inner hall without his permission. After all, this was the training ground that he specially used to nurture these geniuses. How could he allow unauthorized people to disturb it? The other geniuses on the square were attracted by the footsteps, causing their gazes to gather toward the source of the footsteps. They were curious to see who was so daring to barge into the inner hall without Lu Nantian's permission. Under the gazes of the crowd, 2 figures finally appeared in everyone's line of sight. In particular, the young man with the green coffin on his back attracted everyone's attention. Due to the appearance of the young man, the square also descended into a trace of silence. Lu Nantian was also stunned. His eyes were fixed on the young man, and a trace of surprise and disbelief appeared on his face. Lu Hantian, who was standing beside Zhuowen, seemed to have been ignored by everyone at this moment. Everyone was staring at Zhuowen in a daze. It's actually Zhuowen? He didn't die and came out of the blood demon inheritance. You must have heard about the abnormality of the Origin Qi Tower a few days ago, right? It is said that 2 people broke out of the tower. One of them was carrying a green coffin, while the other looked like a beggar. It seems like they are the two people in front of us. This Juoan is too terrifying. Even the blood demon inheritance can't do anything to him. Whispers suddenly resounded in the square like a curtain of rain. Everyone was staring at the young man with the green coffin in shock. Their expressions were different as they discussed spiritedly. Lu Hantian, who was ignored, was extremely unhappy with everyone's neglect. He said loudly, "Lu Nantian, why aren't you getting your ass over here? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,